While I was washing clothes, a dying handsome youth drifted to me on the water. Later, he became my husband, but just as I learned I was pregnant, he disappeared. Half a year later, the authorities sent me into the imperial palace. I was imprisoned, suffering from cold, hunger, and humiliation, and died tragically along with the child in my womb, all because the world believed that his ascension to the throne was ordained by heaven, blessed by the gods. The experience in Peach Village simply could not exist. Opening my eyes again, I was back in Peach Village, where everything was coming back to life. My friend is calling me to go to Peach Creek to do laundry together. I shouted, "No one is allowed to go with such a beautiful spring day. Why wash clothes? I'll make you a set of pancake." Since he is appointed by heaven, let heaven save him. 1. I died in a cramped courtyard. After 10 days in the palace, I was starving and freezing, begging the eunuch for a bit of food I could endure, but there was a child inside me. The eunuch kicked me to the ground. "You filthy scoundrel, do you dare to dream of the emperor?" I didn't dare to say it wasn't me who dreamed of it, but that it was the emperor who once sought me as his wife. I could only plead, "In 2 months, I will turn 20. I am guilty, but the child is innocent. Let me give birth to him, and then I'll die. Is that okay?" I really couldn't bear to part with the child in my womb. He had already started kicking inside me. I thought, after all, it's his child, and they would give the child a chance at life. The eunuch sneered before stamping down hard on my abdomen. "How dare someone like you, a bastard, even try to conceive? Do you really think the royal family is vegetarian?" My blood was flowing, yet I kept kneeling and kowtowing, pleading, "Please, sir, speak to the emperor for me. Once the child is born, I will take my own life immediately. I so wanted this child to have a chance to see the sun." "Eunuch, don't you dare dream. All of this is by the emperor's sacred decree." My blood, following the rough crevices of the palace bricks, meandered out, just like the peach blossom stream in Peach Village, covered with fallen petals. My final consciousness actually heard Peiyu rushing over and asking in a deep voice, "Has it been dealt with cleanly, Your Majesty?" "It has been cleansed." If anyone mentions Peach Village again, their entire clan will be exterminated, so he truly despised those 3 years spent in Peach Village. Yet back then, he had pleaded with me so joyfully, "Peach Village is so beautiful, and Yang Yang is even more beautiful. There is no more beautiful maiden in this world than Yang Yang. Marry me, we will be together for a lifetime and have a bunch of children." I was immediately moved when I heard that. I am an orphan, and what I desire most is a family. That young man, beautiful and warm, how wonderful it would be to have more children with him. I nodded with joy, agreeing wholeheartedly. The whole village was kind-hearted, never bullying me because I was an orphan. Instead, they helped me in every way. When they heard I was getting married, everyone pitched in to give us a lively wedding. Little did I know that all of this was a taboo that couldn't be mentioned in his presence. Such good villagers ended up suffering a tragic fate because of me. How unwilling I am, my dear friends, and the child who never came into this world too. "Yang Yang, let's go do the laundry together." Suddenly, I heard my friend calling me. I opened my eyes and found myself back in my home in Peach Village. The yellow calendar on the table was open to the day I saved Peiyu in my previous life. Am I reborn? I quickly scrambled out of bed. The sun was shining brightly outside, and the courtyard was filled with the warmth of spring and the fragrance of flowers. The buddies are still full of life. My eyes immediately welled up with tears. I confirmed that I had been reborn in my previous life. These 3 buddies were my closest friends, and as a result, our entire family suffered the most tragic end in this life. I will definitely make it up to them. Thinking of this, I was instantly filled with fighting spirit. I shouted to my friends outside the window, "No one is allowed to go on such a beautiful spring day. Why bother washing clothes? Come on in, I'll make something delicious for you." I inherited my mother's talent for cooking. Usually, when I go to the town to sell food, people from all around know how skillful I am, so when I say, "I'll make something delicious," my friends all come in like fish hooked on a line. Obediently entering the yard, they laughed in unison and asked, "Yang Yang, what delicious food are you making again?" I said, "I'm making jianbingguozi for you." Upon hearing this, the 3 of them started drooling. I said, "Hurry up and wipe your drool. Don't act like little fools." The three of them burst into laughter together. I quickly set up the stove and started making pancakes. They watched in amazement as I kept adding ingredients to the pancake roll. Yang Yang, are you planning to eat like there's no tomorrow? I handed them the bulging pancake roll and said, pass, I'm doing even better now, and I'll bring you all to prosperity together. With my past life experiences, I know too well how to make money. As for that beast, since he is under the will of heaven, let heaven save him. 3. After finishing the pancake, it was already past noon. We had actually been happily fooling around all morning, thinking about the person in the water. They must have been soaked and bloated by now. I then cleaned up the dishes. The four of them sang songs together as they went to Peach Creek to wash clothes. Upon arriving at Peach Creek, fallen petals were scattered everywhere. The flowing water even carried a fragrant scent. Staying away from scumbags, it feels so good to be alive. Peiyu wasn't in the water. He was probably washed away by the current, at least this spring. Water wasn't tainted recently. The spring rain has been heavy, causing the peach stream to swell. No one saved him, so naturally, he had to keep drifting along with the water. Then he would have drifted straight into the East Sea to feed the sharks. Just thinking about it makes me happy. When I got home, I hung up the laundry. Seeing how nice the sunlight was, I moved the bedding out to air it in the sun. Then I lay on the bamboo chair, with sunlight filtering through the peach branches and falling on me, warm and cozy, indescribably comfortable. I recalled the cold, cramped courtyard in the corner of the cold palace. The past is too painful to look back on. Being reborn is truly a blessing from heaven. I must repay the villagers who have helped me. Just as I was thinking, I suddenly heard a heavy object at the courtyard gate. I got up and opened the courtyard gate. Peiyu was covered in wounds and soaked through. Weakly leaning against the door, he asked, why didn't you go to the laundry? For I was startled. He's not dead. He asked me why I didn't go to the riverside to wash clothes. How did he know I was going to the riverside to wash clothes? Could it be that he, too, has been reborn? It must be so. I broke out in a cold sweat, but I couldn't let him know I was reborn, nor could I reveal that I knew he was reborn. In his previous life, he had killed the crown prince to ascend the throne. With his ruthless nature, if he knew I knew, he might just kill me on the spot. This is to test me. I pointed to the clothes all over the yard and said, you're quite strange, can't you see? The clothes I've hung all over the yard. Why are you asking me why I didn't do the laundry? Besides, what does it have to do with you whether I wash clothes or not? He glanced at the yard, panting, and said, why didn't you go to wash clothes this morning? Me, are you sick or something? Whether I wash clothes in the morning or the afternoon, is it any of your business? He froze, as if convinced that there was nothing wrong with my washing clothes. Then, unexpectedly, he reached out to take my hand. My hand recoiled as if bitten by a snake's fangs. Then she turned around and slapped him hard across the face, cursing, you shameless lecher, who do you think you're touching? He gasped for breath and said, Yang Yang, save me. I chuckled to myself, save you? Aren't you the one chosen by heaven? Why don't you ask heaven to save you? But I couldn't let him see what I was thinking, so he pretended to be concerned and asked, what's wrong with you? He said he had accidentally fallen off a cliff. Just as he had answered in his previous life. In fact, he had tried to assassinate the crown prince and was chased by the imperial army, leading to his fall into the water. It turned out that in his previous life, he had been deceiving me from the moment we met. I looked at the wounds on his body and pretended to mutter to myself, how does this look like a wound from an official's blade? He immediately tensed up. I slowly stepped back and said, you're a fugitive, aren't you? Save you, that's against the law. I am a law-abiding citizen. Peiyu's face turned red, and he said, stop pretending. I just called you Yang Yang, and you didn't even show any surprise. You recognized me long ago, didn't you? Wow. That's really a venomous snake. I almost fell for his tricks without realizing it. If it only involved myself, it wouldn't matter. I could just start over, but behind me, there are the lives of the entire village. 5. I immediately hardened my heart, filled with ruthless resolve. I would take advantage of his frail state and end his life. Then I would dump his body into Peach Creek. With the coming peach blossom flood, his corpse would be swept down to the East Sea in 2 days. Feeding the fish, I could avenge my grievance and eliminate this hidden peril, all without anyone ever finding out. Damn it. I slowly reached for the door bar behind me, but suddenly, Something felt off. How did he survive in my previous life? I was the first to discover him. He was already completely unconscious at the time. It took all the strength we had to pull him out of the water in this life. I didn't save him. So how did he survive if it weren't for someone else saving him? The thought of him surviving the flooded Peach Creek was harder than reaching the heavens. He must have had accomplices. I immediately looked around nervously, seeing my tension. Pei-yu gave a sinister smile. You admit it, don't you? I know I must never admit it, even if it means death. If I were to reveal even a hint of it, he would surely kill me to silence me. So I angrily retorted, admit what? Everyone in the village calls me Yang Yang. What's so strange about you knowing that? It's you pretending to know me. What exactly are you plotting, seeing that I didn't admit it? He actually tried to grab my arm to play up the drama. This is truly like getting a pillow just as you're falling asleep. I was just worrying about how to call for help without arousing his suspicion. As soon as he grabbed me, I let out a loud scream. Help! Pervert! Help! Pervert! This was clearly the instinctive reaction of someone who didn't know the person at all. Encountering a pervert, no matter how suspicious he was, he couldn't find any fault in it. I am well aware that he is a person as venomous as a snake and as cruel as a starving wolf. With every step I take, I must be cautious and avoid making any mistakes. Taotsuan is not large, and in no time, Brother Heisey was the first to arrive. Brother Heisey is my neighbor and has always treated me like his own sister. I heard that man harassing me, so I swung the shovel and hit him. The deep smack sound was incredibly satisfying. The villagers who arrived later quickly gathered around. When they heard that this scoundrel had intended to harm me, everyone was filled with righteous indignation. He was killed on the spot without hesitation because the people of Peach Village are kind and simple. My mother once saved the lives of the entire village at that time. A disease called shaking fever was prevalent, affecting almost every household. My mother saved the entire village by boiling wild mugwort from the mountains to make medicinal water. As a result, they showed me, an orphaned girl, exceptional care and affection. But I couldn't let the villagers stain their hands with blood because of me. Otherwise, if the authorities were to investigate, it would become a major hidden danger. I watched as they beat Pei-yu to the point of losing the ability to fight back, and then I stopped everyone from continuing. Pei-yu took the beating without fighting back, his eyes fixed on me. Yang Yang, do you hate me so much? If this is our first meeting, where does this hatred come from? Since we are acting, we must act convincingly. I slapped him hard across the face twice and said, you have no shame. Who are you calling? Where did you hear someone call me? And now you come here to blackmail me. Have we ever met? How dare you spread lies and nonsense here? Whose reputation do you want to ruin? Then I turned back to the villagers and said, let everyone bear witness. I, Qin Yang Yang, was born in this peach village and grew up in this peach village. Have I ever acted in a way that goes against customs or propriety? This guy sat at my doorstep today, insisting he knows me and has some connection with me. I am a clean and innocent person, yet he slanders me with baseless accusations. Even injured like this, he still harbors bad intentions towards me. He's really not a good person. I wonder what he's up to. Please help me take him to the authorities. Clear my name. Everyone chimed in, saying, exactly. This person clearly isn't one to be trifled with. Who can't you slander? But you dare to slander Yang Yang. She's the best girl in our village. This is truly shameless to the extreme. Sitting at someone's doorstep to cause harm, several sturdy villagers tied him up and sent him to the authorities. I was afraid of any accidents, so I followed along. I wanted to hand him over to the authorities as quickly as possible. Once at the authorities, his identity would be exposed. Shouldn't we finish him off, that prince? But halfway there, I started to feel something was off. Throughout the entire journey to the authorities, he didn't resist at all. In fact, he was almost unnervingly calm. He is a man being pursued by the government troops. This reaction is not right. He is meticulous in thought, decisive in action, and his ambitions are clear. He would never just wait for death. His reaction is definitely not right. It suddenly occurred to me that the prefect of Changju Prefecture, where I was in my previous life, was directly promoted to Minister of Personnel after Pei-yu ascended the throne. All officials in Changju rose together with their families. The day after Pei-yu was saved by me, the magistrate of Daoxian County, where Taotsuan was located, personally led officers to search. Seeing Pei-yu, I said that he was my brother, injured while gathering herbs in the mountains. They believed it, and they even kindly gave me some healing medicine. I was wondering, why were they so kind? How could they believe it so easily? Now that I think about it, they weren't actually catching fugitives at all. They searched not only with knives and guns but also with thick, long ropes in our local area. Such ropes are used for rescue operations. How could they be searching for fugitives? They were there to rescue the fugitives. No wonder Pei-yu chose Cheongju Prefecture to make his move against the Crown Prince. Cheongju is likely within his sphere of influence. That's why he's not worried now. Delivering him to the authorities plays right into his hands. This is letting the tiger return to the mountain. Thinking of my tragic death in my previous life and the entire village's plight, I broke out in a cold sweat. I thought that with the knowledge from my previous life, I could easily take revenge. I forgot that he, too, had been reborn. He also remembers his past life, and he is more meticulous than I am. He is more ruthless and cruel than I am. The current me and Taotsuan are more dangerous than in our previous life. How could I have been so careless and hasty? 7. I secretly called Brother Heise over and carefully instructed him. Whatever we say and do now must not be known to others. You go and quietly check the county yamen first. See if there are any signs of officials coming out to search. I see that guy doesn't seem afraid of being sent to the authorities. There must be something fishy going on if the constable comes out, not only armed with knives and spears but also carrying thick, long ropes. You must hurry ahead of the constable and cut off the single-log bridge between Peach Village and the county office. We absolutely cannot let the constable come over, and we must not leave any traces behind. If anyone asks, just say it was washed away by a flash flood. Hurry back. I'm not yet sure what difference another life would make, so I'm having Brother He go first to check it out. Although Brother He doesn't know why I'm doing this, he has always trusted my words. He used the excuse of needing to relieve himself and quietly left the escort team. I watched him run off, then called everyone to rest on a patch of land by the roadside. Much sooner than I expected, Brother Heise returned stealthily. Drenched in sweat, I was startled. By the time, he shouldn't have even reached the county yamen yet. 8. He concealed himself among the escort and said, "The peach blossom flood has been happening these past 2 days. I'll go ahead and scout the path." In no time, he ran back and said, "The bridge ahead has been washed away by a flash flood. We can't get across." I pretended to be annoyed and helpless, signaling everyone to turn back. On the way back, Pei-yu seemed suspicious. Yet he couldn't find any flaws. Blackie whispered to me, "I just crossed the bridge and hadn't walked 2 miles when I saw the officers. Those officers really did bring thick, long ropes." Yang Yang, you're amazing. You could even predict this. I just went back to the broken bridge, and the officers had also reached the other side of the broken bridge. I didn't expect the officials to arrive so quickly in this lifetime. In my previous life, the Crown Prince's men were stationed in the county town, watching the only road to the capital. In this lifetime, I wonder if they are still there. Those people operate in secrecy. They are certainly not the kind that ordinary folks can approach just because they wish to. I must hurry and find a way to contact them. If the county yamen officials find Pei-yu first, the situation will be dire. The immediate priority is to first uncover the details of Pei-yu's current life. How many accomplices does he have? Saving Pei-yu but leaving him at my doorstep. What are you trying to do? We just beat him up like that. And yet his accomplices didn't show up. Pei-yu is someone with the ability to usurp power and seize the throne. He has many capable and unusual talents under his command, and is not short on methods like poison or sedatives. If his accomplices didn't appear, it can only mean he has something to fear or something to scheme for. Then we should start from his taboos and schemes. Taking him back to the village, where to lock him up is a problem. If he is locked up in my house, as a lone woman, it would be inappropriate in Pei-yu's eyes. It would be further evidence of our involvement. If Pei-yu were locked up in someone else's home, it would bring immense risk to that household. I went to discuss with the village head. The village head said, "Put him in the abandoned city god temple. It's spacious there." I suddenly remembered when I used to sell food with my mother at the city god temple, where an old Taoist priest mentioned that there was a hidden chamber beneath the opera stage. Originally dug for shelter during emergencies, most people were unaware of it. The village chief's mention of it came at just the right time. I'll use this to stage the performance. Let that beast suffer endlessly and reveal its true nature. 9. When Peiyu arrived at the city god temple, he was visibly nervous. Yang Yang, why didn't you take me home? I spat in his face. Pa, you shameless scoundrel. At this point, still spouting nonsense, trying to ruin my reputation. Say one more word out of turn, and I'll cut out your tongue. Peiyu wasn't angry even after being spat in the face. He continued to stare at my face and body with a fiery gaze, looking me up and down. Then he said with a laugh, Yang Yang is still as feisty as ever. I listened, then punched him in the eye, angrily cursing, I'll shut your mouth for talking nonsense. I'll poke your eyes out. I turned back and said to the villagers, let's hurry up and repair the bridge. We need to send this shameless thing to the authorities quickly. I was just acting as if I was wholeheartedly determined to send him to the authorities. I never expected that upon hearing this, Peiyu would say with deep emotion, Yang Yang, believe it or not, in this life and the next, I have only ever loved you. Oh my goodness, oh my God, how dare that scoundrel have the nerve to say such a thing? Isn't this just asking for a beating? Without a word, I slapped him twice. You despicable wretch, you're uncomfortable unless you're beaten. Your lady, will grant you that. I slapped him with all my might. But in the end, my hand didn't have much strength. Even after being slapped, he still looked indifferent. He even pressed his tongue against the side of his cheek, smiling like a rogue teasing a decent woman. I'm dying of frustration. I couldn't care less about any taboos. I took off my straw sandals and swung at him. I was determined to wipe that smile off his face. I'd rather kill him than let myself die of frustration. The soles of those straw sandals were exceptionally rough. With 2 slaps from the shoe soles, the delicate skin on his face was instantly scraped into streaks of blood. He truly cherished that face of his. After all, in my previous life, I too was captivated by his handsome appearance. I became even angrier at this thought. I cursed, let you be cheap if you keep spouting nonsense. I'll make sure you don't even last until the authorities arrive. I'll gouge out your eyes first. As I spoke, I pulled out the bamboo hairpin from my hair and held it close to his eyes, asking in a deep voice, you want to give it a try? Peiyu's face turned pale, and he finally became obedient. The mocking expression of superiority was finally gone. He finally remembered that I was someone who could kill chickens and sheep without batting an eye. However, hearing my anger, Peiyu still planned to send him to the authorities, clearly feeling relieved, but I couldn't relax. What was he wary of? What was he plotting? This answer is a matter of life and death. 10. Thinking of this, I said to myself in my heart, I must first make him believe that I am not reborn. So if this is the first time I've met this person today, what should I do now? I imagined him as a complete stranger in my mind. Then, I naturally began to speak. Who are you? Why did you come here? Where did the injuries on your body come from? Why did you slander my innocence? Yes, I said to myself, if I don't know him, I should ask these questions. Upon hearing this, he actually replied with a smile. I am someone who loves you. I came specifically to find you. So I went to your house. I got this injury from accidentally falling off a cliff. I am not slandering your innocence. I truly know you. I want to grow old with you for a lifetime. This scoundrel still dares to speak lewdly to me at a time like this. Do you really think I'm a vegetarian? In my previous life in Peach Village, I was the most cheerful and bold girl. It's just that after marrying him and becoming pregnant, I became more reserved, and for the sake of our child's survival, I had to compromise. He must have forgotten my true nature. However, this shows that he should believe I am not reborn. After he said that, he licked his lips and looked at me. In my previous life, he was used to using this action to tempt me. Now seeing this action is truly ridiculous. I silently raised my hand and pinched my fingers. As soon as Peiyu saw my action, his body couldn't help but tremble slightly. He knew I was about to drive away the peach blossom snake. The peach blossom snake is harmless but has a special effect. Anyone bitten by it would feel as if ants were crawling all over their body, causing an unbearable itch without an antidote. Even scratching oneself to the point of being torn and tattered would not relieve the itch. Only by enduring it for 3 full hours would the effects naturally subside. Peiyu was familiar with the peach blossom snake from his previous life. Now, seeing me drive away the snakes, he finally softened. He said warily, "What do you want to do, Qin Yang Yang? Don't do anything you'll regret. MPH. Nothing in my previous life made me regret more than that." 11. The peach blossom snake flicked its tongue and slithered closer. "Pei, his face deathly pale, roared, "Qin Yang Yang, if you dare use that snake, I'll reveal your secret." I retorted, Qin Yang Yang, act with integrity and walk the straight path. What shameful secret could I possibly have? Do you think I'm afraid of you? Your belly cover is white, embroidered with pink peach blossoms." I was startled, and my face turned red instantly. "Am I right? I also know." He paused threateningly on purpose. I pulled out the shoe insert and stuffed it into his mouth, cursing, "You filthy scoundrel, it seems you even scouted the place beforehand, watching me wash clothes. You come out with your nonsense, I'll make sure you never ruin my reputation again." With that, I drove out more peach blossom snakes. Pei had something stuffed in his mouth and couldn't shout, only able to make MMPH sounds. Soon, his body felt an intense itch, as if thousands of ants were burrowing into his heart. He could only desperately writhe his body. I watched casually from the side, even deliberately taunting, "It's just like a dung beetle rolling a ball of dung." In no time at all, he was drenched in sweat. I sat in front of him, watching him struggle, and asked, "Do you still dare to frame me? I'm asking you, do you still dare to lie?" He nodded desperately. "Me. If you dare to say any more nonsense, I'll pull out your tongue." As I spoke, I pulled out the shoe insert. Pei, while laughing painfully and panting, said, "I really fell into the water accidentally while gathering herbs. The peach blossom flood was so fierce that it swept me right down. I passed out, but fate was not ready to take me, and I was washed into an eddy. My head hit a rock, and the impact jolted me awake. I struggled with all my might to climb out, dizzy and disoriented. I collapsed right in front of your door. I didn't come here on purpose. It was only when I heard that girl call you Yang Yang that I learned your name." Pei truly could endure what others could not. He dared not to tell the truth in such a situation, but right now, I still cannot express disbelief. I must pretend to believe, to make him let his guard down, then, step by step, figure out his conspiracy. Everything seems very similar to the previous life, but it's not the same. He is different. I, too, am no longer the same. I, on the other hand, will become someone even more ruthless than him. 12. I had him tied up on the stage, then I announced loudly, "Light the bonfire, and let everyone see this shameless person. I can't give him the antidote today. He's been slandering me like this. Not killing him is already letting him off easy. Once the bridge is repaired, we'll send him to the authorities and give him 200 lashes, let him be flayed until his skin splits open, and see if he still dares to talk nonsense. I will use this humiliation, along with this torture, to force out his accomplices." The village head said to send a few strong laborious to take turns guarding at night, and the rest should go home to rest. "We'll repair the bridge tomorrow." Everyone responded and dispersed. I handed a package to one of them, pretending to whisper, "The poison will wear off on its own in 3 hours, but we must also guard against him dying before the 3 hours are up. Keep an eye on him, and give him this when he's about to die. Don't let him die by our hands." After saying that, I put the peach blossom snake back into the snake bag and went home. That Pei was staring at me, so he must have seen it. Hey, the antidote is indeed the real antidote, but it's been spiked. 13. Taking advantage of the darkness, I sneaked back to the city god temple and hid in the secret room under the stage. If they intend to harm the villagers on guard, or merely to confirm that all their accomplices have arrived, I will release the snakes. After about the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, I saw 6 villagers on guard collapse into a deep sleep. Clearly, they were affected by a sleeping powder. Then 2 shadowy figures emerged, one with a dark face and the other with a pale face. They checked each villager one by one to confirm that they were all unconscious. Then they turned around to untie Pei and knelt before him. Pei had no time to say anything. He tore off his outer garment and frantically began scratching all over his body. In a short while, he was covered in blood. He cursed under his breath, "Hurry and search for the antidote." He directed someone to search for the packet of medicine I had given him. He had someone dip their fingertip in and swallow it. After about 3 to 5 minutes with no unusual reaction, Pei quickly swallowed the packet of medicine. In just a short while, The itching stopped, but his entire body was already covered in blood, which was quite horrifying. He put on his coat with a gloomy expression and said, "That wretch. Just wait until I skin her alive and pull out her tendons." I thought to myself, that's more like it. This kind of ruthlessness is the real him. All those affectionate words he said earlier were truly nauseating. He then asked, "Have you checked the bridge? How did it collapse?" Black-faced man, "Your Highness, forgive me. When I arrived, the single log of that bridge had already vanished without a trace. It must have been washed away by the mountain flood." White-faced man, "Your Highness, you endured that woman's torment, yet you did not." He made a snapping motion at his neck with his hand. Peiyu said, "Not yet. She has a method to drive away snakes. That peach blossom snake is very sinister, and we must get our hands on that snake-repelling technique. That skill could rival the entire military force of that useless man in Tongju City." I secretly laughed to myself. So he's been coveting my secret of snake control in his previous life. He had witnessed the power of snake control at that time. Refugees were looting villages, killing anyone who resisted. I had to use it once to protect the lives and property of everyone in the village. The peach blossom snake instantly rendered a group of nearly frenzied rioters powerless. He must have had his eye on it since then. He once pretended to make indirect inquiries. I almost said it, but then I remembered my mother's repeated warnings, never tell anyone, not even the closest person. Because that method was naturally passed down to me by my mother through bloodline, no one else could use it. If others were to know this secret, and I were not to be of use to him, it would inevitably lead to my death. I believed what my mother said and brushed it off. In my previous life, he abducted me into the palace, pretending to be tender and affectionate, luring me into revealing the method of driving away snakes. I refused to speak. He, in turn, used this method to help him deal with disobedient ministers. I didn't want to do that and tried my best to persuade him. Moreover, at that time, I had already lost the power to control snakes because this snake-controlling power is lost after pregnancy, naturally transferring to the fetus. Therefore, a person with this spiritual power, unless they willingly give up this ability, will not have descendants. But Peiyu believed that my silence and refusal to use that spiritual power meant I was not serving him. Moreover, at that time, to cover up his heinous act of killing the crown prince and seizing the throne, he was spreading rumors with his accomplices everywhere, claiming that he was appointed by heaven, and that divine protection always accompanied him in times of crisis. Peach Village simply cannot exist. My tragic death was inevitable. Yet Peiyu could never have imagined that the snake-repelling method he so desperately longed for was something he himself had destroyed. The child I carried was the only person in this world capable of possessing that spiritual power. What a tremendous irony this. I must tell him before he dies. 14. The dark-faced man spoke cautiously again. Does she really know about the prince's affairs? If she knows even a little, no one in the entire village can be spared. The ability to drive away snakes is merely the icing on the cake. If word of our affairs were to leak out, it would be a matter of life and death, Peiyu said. I am well aware of this. Today, I tested her repeatedly using various methods, and even in her rage, she did not reveal any flaws. Don't touch the villagers yet. We are in the shadows now. Slaughtering the village would alert the enemy. Our assassination attempt on that useless one failed, so we must remain patient for a while longer. We can't let that old bastard find out, the man with the black face said. Your Highness, are you sure she doesn't know? I think that woman is unpredictable, Peiyu said. Can she escape my grasp? I'll just use a little trick, and she'll surely fall for me. I almost spat out blood when I heard that. In my past life, wasn't I exactly as he said, utterly devoted to him? Peiyu asked again. Any news from Qinghong and the other one? The pale-faced man replied. After diverting the crown prince's pursuing troops, they turned back to track them. They discovered that the two disguised themselves as merchants and hid in the Yulai Inn, without reporting to the authorities. Could it be that they also distrust the Daoxian authorities? Peiyu said. After all, that fool still has a few intelligent subordinates. Unlike that useless magistrate Zhao, a single log bridge could stop him. The pale-faced man. So what's the next step? Peiyu, make sure Magistrate Zhao goes to Peach Village tomorrow. They said they were escorting me back to the county Yamen, We were ambushed halfway, and then decided to place me under the care of Qin Yanyan's family. I will definitely capture that Qin Yangyang Taozuan is the perfect place to hide. Both land and water routes are suitable for advancing to attack and retreating to defend. The people in the village are also simple. It is relatively easy to deceive them. As for those useless subordinates, there's no need to worry about them anyway. I never planned to escape. What's the use of them staring at the traffic idiot Sen Qing and Hong to contact the prefect of Changju? 15 days later, prepare the troops outside Peach Village. Once ready, leave me a secret signal. Yes, after answering, the two men tied Pei Yu up again before slipping away. Sure enough, this scoundrel is full of wicked ideas, and his thinking quite grandly. I'll just go along with his plan and turn it to my advantage. 15 I slipped away from the stage, swam out of the village overnight, disguised myself as a man, and hurried to the Yulai Inn in the county town. When I was beating Pei Yu earlier, I casually snatched the jade pendant from his waist. Arriving at the inn, I found the servant who delivered the tea. I gave him 10 strings of coins to deliver the jade pendant to the northerner staying at the inn today. In no time, someone approached my table and asked, "Would you join me for a pot of wine?" 16 When I returned to Peach Village, dawn was almost breaking. It is estimated that the people brought by Magistrate Zhao will arrive soon. The guards woke up completely unaware of what had happened. Seeing that Pei Yu was still tied to the stage, they breathed a sigh of relief. Pei Yu, still pretending to be asleep, I splashed a basin of salt water over him. He let out a sharp cry of pain. The wounds all over his body hadn't yet scabbed over, and being soaked in this salt water truly caused him excruciating agony. I walked over and patted his face, but he still pretended to be dazed. I casually hung the jade pendant back on his waist. After breakfast, Magistrate Zhao arrived. He was exactly as Pei Yu had described, and he placed Pei Yu under house arrest at my home. I pretended to decline for a while, acting as though I couldn't resist the authorities, and allowed Pei Yu to stay. There were also 2 official messengers living together. In fact, they were none other than his 2 subordinates with their black and white faces. The bridge was repaired, and they used the excuse that Pei Yu was seriously injured and needed to recuperate, never mentioning taking Pei Yu away. Pei Yu showed me daily care and tenderness, bathing my feet despite being injured, then receiving another scolding from me, but I improved his meals significantly. His spirits lifted. Thinking I was just putting up a tough front, she had already fallen for him. His confidence really saved me a lot of effort. I calculated that there are only 10 days left before the refugees from my previous life raid our village. That Pei Yu clearly knows about that day as well. He pretended to be sickly, waiting for the day I would perform the snake driving ritual. He thought that with his past life experiences, he would surely figure it out this time. I will make him understand with heartbreak and frustration. 17 At the same time, something else happened in the Great Yu Kingdom. Cotton in Jiangnan had a bumper harvest for 3 consecutive years, and it was another warm winter. Cotton farmers couldn't sell their cotton and had to drastically reduce prices. It's summer now, and the cotton is even more prone to insect infestation when left there. The price of cotton is not even as good as firewood. I had Brother Heisey go to the county town to find a warehouse to secretly stockpile cotton. This task is most suitable for Brother Heisey to handle. He trusts me a lot, and is a man of few words, honest and reliable. Others may not know, but I do. Those refugees fled because war was about to break out in the northern borderlands. That war lasted for 4 long years. When winter came, the northern soldiers were in desperate need of cotton-padded clothes and quilts, and this summer, cotton was basically abandoned. The court had to spend a large amount of money to purchase it from all over. In addition to the cost of war, the national treasury was empty. Pei Yu took advantage of this national crisis to rise to power. That crown prince is actually one who worries about the nation and its people. I will lend my strength to assist that crown prince, and repay the villagers for their kindness to me. It also serves as compensation for the harm they suffered in their previous lives. 18 Gradually, refugees began to pass through the village. At first, they could still beg for food along the way. By the end, they couldn't get anything at all, so some refugees began to plunder. Pei Yuan sat in the house, pretending to be weak and recuperating from his injuries. He knew I would drive away snakes to protect the villagers, so he wasn't worried about the refugees, but he didn't know that his weakness wasn't entirely feigned. The 10-flavor softening muscle powder my mother taught me is truly magical. It can gradually weaken a person without them noticing. Moreover, the drug makes the blood emit a fragrance. After 10 days of taking it, only blood flows, and the fragrance spreads in all directions. Finally, the day came when a large group of refugees arrived early in the morning. A crescent-shaped mark appeared on the peach tree in front of my door. The dark-faced man went out for a while and quickly returned. The three of them nodded in, enjoying their breakfast in great comfort. After finishing breakfast, I went out to work in the fields as usual in my previous life. It was in the fields that I discovered the refugee bandits raiding the villages, which led me to use my snake driving skills. Although I narrowly won in the end, I was also left with a host of injuries. Pei looked at me as he left, his cheeks twitching as he said, "Be careful." I gave him a sidelong glance. Even plowing a field requires caution. Are you afraid of choking while eating? Seeing my reaction, Pei didn't suspect anything. About half an hour later, commotion came from the village entrance in the blink of an eye. We were not far from the entrance of my home. Pei was somewhat taken aback. In my previous life, I had stopped these people halfway. The pale-faced man peered out from the top of the wall, suddenly saying, "Something's not right. Where are the children? The adults are in the fields, so why are the children nowhere to be seen?" As soon as the words were spoken, a hissing sound came from inside the house. Hundreds of snakes emerge. The three men are unable to kill them all in time and are each bitten by the snakes. The three men start scratching together, their bodies covered in blood. After the blood flows, a strong fragrance is released and felt completely weak and powerless. Pei realized that something had changed and quickly told the dark-faced man to hurry to the village outskirts to seek reinforcements. It turned out that this morning, when Pei and the others saw the markings on the tree, they sent the dark-faced man to secretly scout the village outskirts. The dark-faced man spotted what seemed to be troops stationed there and assumed they were the backup forces summoned by Qing and Hong. Now, he too knew that things were going badly, so, gritting his teeth against the intense itch, he stumbled toward the direction of the stationed troops. He still didn't know that he was walking right into a trap. The troops stationed there belonged to the Crown Prince. 15 days ago, at the inn, I made a deal with the Crown Prince's men. I told them Pei's plan in exchange for 1,000 taels of silver. Not only that, I said that Pei, now living among the common people, does not show obvious evil deeds. Instead, he has gained some reputation for virtue. If the Crown Prince directly counterkills him, it would be detrimental to the Crown Prince. Moreover, if the current emperor were to find out, the Crown Prince's position would be unstable. It would be better to use the hands of the vagrant to eliminate him. The Crown Prince's subordinate asked, "Why should he trust me? I told you to intercept those two, Qing and Hong. After a thorough interrogation, you will surely know that what I said is true. Moreover, I am a person with supernatural powers. Cooperating with me will only benefit, not harm, the Crown Prince's cause. As a reborn person, with many skills inherited from my mother, showing a bit of supernatural power is not difficult at all." They believed it just by mentioning the refugees and the war in the northern border. Because the northern border is currently only experiencing friction, the Great Kingdom is still deliberately pretending to negotiate for peace, and the common people have no idea that preparations for war are actually underway. As for the refugees, they haven't even reached the Changju region yet. I actually knew all of this after the messenger from the Crown Prince reported back. He agreed to cooperate with me a day earlier. These refugees had heard some news from somewhere. When encountering someone whose blood has a peculiar fragrance, collecting a small pot of it can be exchanged for 100 taels of silver at the prefectural government. It is said to be a precious medicinal ingredient. The governor's beloved son fell critically ill and urgently needed it. Early in the morning, this group of refugees was swept along and headed straight for Peach Village. Because someone said that the person with the miraculous fragrant blood was in Peach Village, no one knew exactly who had spread the rumor, only knowing that someone had taken that blood and already exchanged it for 100 taels of silver. This drove the refugees even more frantic. No one knew who led them, but they headed straight toward my home. As soon as they arrived near my house, they caught a whiff of an extraordinary fragrance, so they broke down the door and rushed toward Pei-yu together. Pei-yu and the pale-faced man, having been fed spiked meals by me day after day, were already weak from blood loss. The refugees picked up knives and began fighting over who would get to cut the two men. It was truly a case of draining their blood first, then slicing their flesh inch by inch to squeeze out every last drop, bound to squeeze out the last drop. At the moment Pei-yu was about to die, I whispered in his ear, "Do you know about the spiritual power to repel snakes?" After I became pregnant, it was passed on to the fetus in my womb, so the snake-repelling technique you longed for was destroyed by your own hands. With his last bit of strength, Pei-yu let out a heartbreaking scream and died. At the time of his death, his blood had dried up, his flesh was gone, and not a single piece of skin remained intact. 20 summer had passed, so had the matter of Pei-yu. That day, I persuaded the villagers to take refuge in the mountains to avoid the refugees, so they did not witness Pei-yu's tragic situation. By the time they returned from the mountains, the Crown Prince's men had already cleaned up everything. They only knew that someone had come to the village intending to harass me, and shortly after, he was killed by the refugees. I organized all the children in the village to make cotton-padded clothes and quilts together. They all wondered why I was doing this on such a hot day. I said it could make money, and they believed it. In their eyes, I was just like my mother, a remarkable person. My mother once said that she couldn't control when she would leave, but if she is found to be gone, do not grieve, let me remember the skills she taught me, and I can live well. I also had the villagers go up the mountain to gather wormwood. The wormwood isn't valuable, fresh ones can't be stored either, so I had everyone dry it thoroughly before storing it. Then I taught them how to prepare it. In winter, there will be another outbreak of malaria. Without this, many people would die. By October, the war in the northern borderlands begins. The north is bitterly cold, and warm clothing is urgently needed. The cotton prices in the market are unusually high, yet it is still difficult to obtain even a single bale. The prince's men arrived as promised to collect my cotton goods. It was all for the soldiers guarding the border, so I sold it to the prince at cost price in the emperor's presence. The prince is far-sighted and capable of great things. In the eyes of the soldiers in the northern frontier, the crown prince cares for them and is willing to serve them wholeheartedly. The crown prince wanted to collaborate with me again, but I refused. I must leave this village because, as my mother said, knowing that someone like me exists brings a fatal danger. Even the most virtuous ruler may harbor suspicions at times. Although my cotton business is priced fairly, but it was acquired at a price lower than firewood. This allowed the entire Taotsuan to earn money they could never have made in their lifetime. I also taught my friends how to make fried pancakes with crispy wonton wrappers and flower-shaped pastries. I told them that girls must also have the ability to be self-reliant. If their families treat them poorly, these skills can also be used to make a living. 21 When winter was approaching, I left. I didn't bid farewell to anyone. Just like my mother, according to my mother, the place where she used to live had a vast, azure sea and was bathed in sunshine all year round. I love warmth, and I love the sea. I am determined to go further south, to find the place where my mother lived. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. At the palace banquet, I took a knife for Jiang Shu and was sent to Lingnan to recuperate. During this year of convalescence, the Jiang family sent a steady stream of tonics to Lingnan every month, and everyone praised Jiang Shu for his devoted and exclusive affection toward me. But my health never improved, and I wanted to return to the capital. Jiang Shu specially came to Lingnan to persuade me. The climate in the capital is not suitable for your recovery. My lady, once you are fully recovered, I will personally bring you home. 3 years passed like this, and my health took a sharp turn for the worse. When I was critically ill, I secretly returned to the capital hoping to see Jiang Shu one last time. Instead, I found the Jiang family hosting a full-month celebration. Jiang Shu was holding his childhood sweetheart and carrying a baby in swaddling clothes, the three of them glowing with health as they entertained the guests. I caused a huge scene but was subdued by the guards. Jiang Shu pointed at me and shouted, This is my mad wife who was sent to the countryside to recuperate. Quickly take her away and don't let her embarrass us further. So all these years I was recuperating, he had been slandering me as a madwoman. I struggled desperately, but I fell from the high platform and died a tragic death. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day of the palace banquet when I took the knife for him. The assassin struck. I kicked Jiangsu aside and threw myself at the Empress Dowager. Rather than saving such a worthless man, I'd rather seize the great merit of rescuing the emperor. When I was reborn, the assassin had already made his move, and the high-ranking officials and nobles at the palace banquet were in chaos. Wife, protect me. Wife, my husband, the Marquis of Jining Jiangsu, was desperately clinging to my waist. Just because I know some martial arts, he naturally hid behind me during the crisis, using my body as a shield. In my previous life, I indeed took a stab from an assassin for Jiangsu. That strike was only half an inch away from my heart. I narrowly escaped death, but was severely injured and weak, so I had no choice but to go to Lingnan to recuperate. When Jiangsu saw me off to Lingnan, he was reluctant to part with me and cried his heart out. After that, every month he would send people to deliver precious tonics and medicinal herbs, making a grand display as they entered the villa where I was recuperating. Everyone in Lingnan praised me for my good fortune, saying I had found a devoted and considerate husband. That is not the case. In the first year of my recovery, unable to bear the humid heat of Lingnan, I wrote a letter wanting to return to the capital. Jiangsu specially came to persuade me. The winters in the capital are long and the climate is cold, which is even less suitable for your recovery. Once your condition improves, I will personally bring you back to the capital. In the second year of my recovery, I felt drowsy and weak every day, and wrote a letter wanting to return to the capital. However, Jiangsu sent someone to say, "My mother is gravely ill and bedridden. If you return to the capital, my dear, I fear I won't be able to manage the care on my own." In the third year of my illness, the physician said my pulse was already like a lamp running out of oil. To see Jiangsu one last time, I endured the pain and secretly traveled north. When I arrived at the Jiang residence, I saw it adorned with festive red silk and firecrackers. Jiangsu, who in his letters claimed to miss me so much that his heart was breaking, and who wrote that he had grown gaunt from caring for his ailing mother, now stood at the entrance of the Jiang residence, beaming with health and vitality, cheerfully welcoming his guests. A woman of elegant and dignified grace stood beside him. I recognized this woman. She was Dia, the maid Jiangsu had by his side before I married into the Jiang family. It was only later that I learned this maid was Jiangsu's distant cousin, Ju Dai. The Ju family had been convicted of a crime, and Ju Dai was reduced to slave status, only able to be kept by his side as a maid. The two had long been involved in a secret affair, but they kept it extremely well hidden. During the 3 years I was away, Ju Dai had clearly made herself at home. She was dressed in a brocade robe, with a fox fur headband on her forehead, holding the hand of a 3-year-old child, while a nursemaid beside her carried an infant in swaddling clothes. Today was the child's 1-month celebration. Back then at the palace banquet, I took a knife for Jiangsu unscathed. Jiangsu took advantage of the imperial guards controlling the situation to step forward and kick the assassin, thus gaining credit for saving the emperor. The declining Jining Marquis household regained power. Their family of 4 was happily united, flourishing and prosperous, like a blazing fire and a bouquet of flowers. My frail and ailing body made me feel out of place in this scene. Where did this beggar woman come from? Is she here to seek blessings for our young master's full-month celebration? The first to notice me was an unfamiliar elderly woman. 3 years ago, I was still in charge of the Jining Marquis manor, and everyone in the household respected me as the mistress. 3 years later today, everyone in the Marquis's household had been replaced. They forgot that the Marquis's household had a legitimate mistress. Seeing me travel worn and sickly, I was made to look like a beggar woman next to that noble concubine. When Jiangsu saw me, his face changed dramatically. "How did you return to the capital?" The distinguished guests present all turned to look. Before I could confront him, my bedridden mother-in-law suddenly rushed forward with vigorous strides. "This is my son's madwoman, Lady Shen. Quickly drag this lunatic away." Don't let her sickness affect my precious grandson." My mother-in-law pulled Ju Dai and the child into her embrace. Ju Dai looked down at me from her superior position, truly as if she were scrutinizing a beggar woman. The 3-year-old child beside her wore a familiar gold necklace around his neck, and I recognized it as the amethyst gold necklace from my dowry. The amethyst gold necklaces came in a pair, made entirely of gold and inlaid with rare purple gemstones, exuding unparalleled elegance. They were personally placed in my dowry by my parents for my security. Now, one of these necklaces was worn around Ju Dai's neck, and the other was on the child. The child, with a gap from his missing front teeth, laughed mockingly in a childish voice. "Beggar woman. Begging for food, don't give her any, don't give her any." I coldly stared at Jiang Shu, the one who started it all. Jiang Shu avoided my gaze for a moment out of guilt, but soon, his true nature was revealed. He first bowed to the distinguished guests to apologize. "This is my wife, Lady Shen, who fell ill and was sent to the countryside to recuperate. I apologize for disturbing everyone's enjoyment. 3 years ago, the Jining Marquis Manor was so deserted that one could catch sparrows at the gate. But now the visitors are all distinguished officials and nobles whose names are well known." They waved their hands and said, "Every family has its own troubles. Is this the same Lady Shen who was frightened out of her wits at the palace banquet and went mad? Young Marquis is still deeply loyal and righteous, if you ask me. How is that timid and ignorant woman worthy of being the Marchioness of Jining? You might as well divorce her soon. Promote your beautiful concubine, who has borne you 2 sons, to the rightful position." So, for the past 3 years, Jiang Shu has been slandering me to outsiders, claiming I went to Lingnan to recuperate as a madwoman. He embraced his beautiful concubine during the palace banquet assassination attempt back then. I was fortunate to have Daya bravely protect me in that critical moment. She never abandoned me. How could I let her down? "Shunsha, since you have returned, the Marquis's household won't let you go hungry. Return to the mansion through the back courtyard side gate. Be careful not to disturb today's distinguished guests. I will come to see you after the full moon banquet ends." He didn't give me a chance to defend myself, immediately ordering the servants to take me away. I struggled desperately, hysterically shouting out the truth from back then. "I'm not crazy. I was the one who saved Jiang Shu at the palace banquet." The most difficult years for the Marquis household were sustained entirely by my dowry, and now a lowly concubine who rose from a maid's position has taken over the nest. Like a cuckoo. It shouldn't be like this. I refuse to accept this. I am unwilling. All I coughed up was a thick, black clot of blood. Jiang Shu stepped forward to support me, his face full of affection, yet he whispered in a low voice, "My lady, your days are numbered. Why didn't you just die in Lingnan instead of coming here to cause trouble?" He appeared to be holding me up, but his right hand pressed against my chest, precisely over the old knife wound. He squeezed hard, and the pain left me limp all over, too weak even to cry out. Has my wife's injury not fully healed yet? Indeed, for these 3 years, my wife has been consuming the medicinal herbs and tonics I sent daily, using the physicians I recommended, and even the maid who brewed your medicine was sent by your husband. Your injury, of course, will never heal. Did you poison me? I looked at this heartless man in pain and shock. Why, I would even risk my life to save you. How could you betray me like this? Jiang Shu smiled coldly. Marrying you back then was only in hopes that your dowry could pay off the Marquis estate's debts. But after you entered the household, everyone spread rumors that I, the Marquis of Jining, was living off a merchant's daughter. Everywhere I went, I was overshadowed by you. How do you think that made me feel as your husband? At the palace banquet, you did save my life, but that was your own foolishness. I only regret that the assassin's blade didn't strike you dead on the spot. That way, I could have taken over the Shen family treasury under your name. Overwhelmed with rage, I wanted to perish together with Jiang Shu, but he tripped me with a swift kick, sending me tumbling down the steps in front of the Jiang residence. I fell head first, blood streaming from my wounds and my body covered in mud. Madam's madness has flared up again. Today is a joyous occasion for the Jiang family. Drag this ill-omened creature away. Madam, you must protect me. The vicious and mean face I saw before my death in my previous life overlapped with the terrified and cowardly Jiang Shu in this life. The assassin's blade was coming straight at us. I sneered coldly, elbowed Jiang Shu to the ground, and then swiftly sidestepped to dodge the assassin's blade. I put all my strength into that strike, and Jiang Shu fell flat on his back, unable to get up from the pain when the assassin's blade came down. Blood splattered into the air, and the maid Daya, hiding behind the rockery, screamed only. Then came Jiang Shu's agonized cry. His chest was completely unharmed, but his crotch had been cleanly severed by the assassin's blade. The banquet was held in the imperial garden outside the palace, and over 30 assassins had infiltrated, causing chaos. The royal nobles were too busy protecting themselves. Palace maids and eunuchs were running around in disarray. Jiang Shu's screams were mixed in, but no one paid any attention. The true target of these assassins is the Empress Dowager in her previous life. The Empress Dowager was struck in the chest by a hidden arrow. The emperor mobilized all the resources of the nation to save her, but after a year of struggle, it was ultimately beyond remedy. I quickly pushed through the crowd and saw that a hidden arrow had already knocked the phoenix crown from the Empress Dowager's head. Empress Dowager, be careful. I leaped and threw myself at the Empress Dowager, shielding her in my arms. Immediately after, I twisted my body sideways, and in that same instant, the hidden arrow that was meant to pierce the Empress Dowager's chest shot through my right shoulder. I coughed up a mouthful of blood but still endured the intense pain, shielding the Empress Dowager beneath me. When the assassin's hidden arrows failed to harm the Empress Dowager, they charged forward with swords and blades. Although the guards risked their lives to protect the emperor, I still took a few punches and kicks on behalf of the Empress Dowager. No matter how dangerous the situation, I held the Empress Dowager tightly beneath me, refusing to let go. The Empress Dowager's gaze toward me shifted from shock to tears. Soon, the Crown Prince arrived with the Imperial Guards. The assassins were either dead or had fled, just like in the previous life. As soon as the Crown Prince arrived, the situation was brought under control. "Child, are you all right?" The Empress Dowager, still shaken herself, gently stroked the back of my head and asked with concern. I tried to sit up, but it felt as if the arrow piercing through my flesh had nailed me to the ground. A pair of strong hands carefully lifted me, avoiding the arrow wound. Amidst the excruciating pain, I steadied myself and saw that it was the Crown Prince Xie who was helping me up. I grabbed his hand and said, "Quickly, check on Her Majesty the Empress Dowager." I weakly closed my eyes and collapsed into the prince's arms. The prince indeed scooped me into his embrace. I heard the Empress Dowager's anxious voice, "Quickly, summon the imperial physician. This child took an arrow for me. She must be saved." "Imperial grandmother, are you injured?" "I'm fine. This child took all the damage for me." Urged by the Empress Dowager's anxious prompting, I was lifted into the air by the Crown Prince. The cold, aloeswood scent from Xie embrace overpowered the smell of blood. The closest place to the Imperial Garden was the Crown Prince's residence outside the palace. I was carried all the way into the warm chamber of the Crown Prince's residence. Countless imperial physicians, following the Empress Dowager's decree, swarmed toward me. While being examined by the physicians, I pricked up my ears and heard the Crown Prince calmly giving orders to the servants. "Send someone to investigate this young lady's background. She suffered the arrow wound to protect the Empress Dowager. Spare no expense to cure her. The Eastern Palace has all the life-saving medicinal herbs you need. No matter who she is, you must treat her as if she were a princess." As for why I could hear these sounds, it's because I never actually lost consciousness in my previous life. I was stabbed in the heart and was truly on the brink of death, only surviving by sheer luck in this life. I knew in advance the direction from which the assassin's arrow would come. While protecting the Empress Dowager, I also guarded the fatal spot on the left side of my chest, letting the arrow pierce through my right shoulder instead. Such an injury may look terrifying, but as long as the bleeding is stopped in time, it won't be life-threatening. With my skills, I could have easily dodged that hidden arrow while protecting the Empress Dowager, but if I had, how could I have performed this self-inflicted injury scheme in front of the Empress Dowager and the Crown Prince? Without this scheme, How could I secure the support of the Empress Dowager and the Eastern Palace as my powerful backers? I heard the imperial physician prescribing medicine for me, using only expensive hemostatic herbs that wouldn't counteract each other, truly doing everything possible to save my life. The Empress Dowager and the Crown Prince are, to me, essentially strangers. I saved the lives of strangers, and they still think of repaying me with everything they have. But when I saved the life of my husband, Jiang Shu, he joined forces with the entire Jiang family, hoping I would die in Lingnan and even saddling me with the reputation of a madwoman rather than risking my life to save that despicable man. I might as well earn the merit of saving the emperor. At that moment, a young eunuch came to report to the Crown Prince, "Your Highness, it has been confirmed. This lady is Shen Wanghe, the wife of the Marquis of Jining." The Crown Prince felt inexplicably angry. Where is the Marquis of Jining? His wife is severely injured like this. Where is he? The little eunuch stammered, "Your Highness, at the palace banquet, the Marquis of Jining was castrated by an assassin with a single slash. He has just been carried back to his residence. This injury is anything but honorable." The Crown Prince snorted coldly. The Marquis of Jining's ancestors rose to prominence as military commanders, yet in a moment of crisis, he proved less courageous than a woman. "Your Highness, it seems the Marquis of Jining is severely injured. His household has come to beg Your Highness to dispatch a few imperial physicians to the residence, hoping to preserve the Marquis's lineage." At this moment, the Empress Dowager, having rested, also hurried over. Upon hearing that the Empress Dowager had arrived, I suddenly closed my eyes, tears streaming down my face, and began to murmur in agony, "Husband, don't hit me. Husband, it hurts." The Crown Prince's voice drew near as he asked with concern, "What's wrong with her?" The imperial physician said, "It must be the delirious ramblings of someone in a coma or nightmare. The Marquis of Jining appears respectable, but could it be that he secretly enjoys being rough with his wife?" Upon hearing this, the Empress Dowager angrily exclaimed, "The Marquis of Jining's family has had only one male heir for 3 generations, yet they raised a wastrel like Jiang Shu. It's bad enough that he is uneducated and incompetent, but he even dares to mistreat his lawful wife. Now that he's even physically disabled, a brave and kind-hearted child like Wang He is truly pitiable to be tied to Jiang Shu." The little eunuch whispered, "Your Highness, what about the request from the Jining Marquis estate?" The Empress Dowager sat by my bedside, holding my hand. "A useless man like Jiang Shu, it's no loss if his line ends. Not a single imperial physician is to leave Lady Shen's side." "Yes." The young eunuch bowed and withdrew. I could feel the Empress Dowager's warm hand pressed against my palm. "I have decided that once Wanghe wakes up, we will ask for her opinion and then grant the two of them a divorce. After all, we cannot let the person who saved my life waste her entire life with a eunuch." The Crown Prince said, "Imperial Grandmother, but divorce after mutual agreement does harm a woman's reputation after all." The Empress Dowager tightly held my palm and said solemnly, "In that case, I shall bestow upon Shen Wanghe the title of second-rank Rongan County Lady, with a fief of 1,000 households. The county lady has the merit of saving the emperor, even if it's a divorce, or even if she divorces her husband, who would dare to recklessly discuss right and wrong." Empress Dowager Zhong was deeply respected by the emperor and held substantial power. With her presence to maintain order, I felt at ease and allowed myself to fall into a deep sleep. By the time I regained consciousness, 2 days had already passed. When I opened my eyes, I was still in the Crown Prince's residence. The imperial physicians and maids, arranged in 2 rows, joyfully went to report to the Crown Prince. Soon, Xieyun entered and dismissed everyone, his amber eyes fixed on me like a hawk. "I have already sent someone to the palace to inform the Empress Dowager. You saved the Empress Dowager's life, a great achievement that will bring honor to your family. What reward do you desire?" The rewards were already decided by the Empress Dowager. "He is just trying to test me." Crown Prince Xieyun is brave and skilled in battle, a war god feared by the Northern Di people in state affairs. He is even more cunning and brilliant, with the majority of civil and military officials in the court speaking in the same voice as the Eastern Palace. Although he has a handsome appearance, being scrutinized so closely by him, I couldn't help but feel a flicker of panic in my heart. Lying in front of such a person is under immense pressure. The Empress Dowager is the mother of the world. Protecting her safety is the duty of a subject's wife. I covered my shoulder injury. Now that I am injured, I'm afraid I won't be able to bear children for my husband and serve my mother-in-law for 1 or 2 years. Your Highness, please have mercy and bestow the rewards meant for me upon the Jining Marquis estate. Xie Yun scrutinized me. You've performed a great service in saving the emperor, yet you're willing to let the Marquis estate take all the credit. I adopted a demeanor of cultivated ignorance. The husband is the guiding principle for the wife. As long as the Marquis estate prospers, I, as your subject's wife, will naturally benefit. If the Marquis is well, the household will naturally be peaceful and flourishing. Xie Yun's gaze toward me overflowed with amusement, as if he were examining an intriguing prey. I put on a delicate, fragile demeanor, feigning calm under his gaze. At this time in my previous life, the Eastern Palace was conducting a citywide manhunt for assassins, causing a huge uproar and putting everyone on edge. Although the Imperial Garden was located outside the palace, it was still a royal garden with relatively tight security, for over 30 assassins to infiltrate. There must have been inside help during the banquet. Everyone who attended the palace banquet that day was a suspect in the Crown Prince's eyes. At this moment, in a certain dungeon of the Eastern Palace, those captured assassins are undoubtedly being subjected to severe torture. I've heard that the men under Xie Yun employ extremely cunning and cruel methods of punishment. They can flay a prisoner alive while keeping them barely alive, only allowing the prisoner to die after they have been dragged into the court to testify and speak the truth. Before the Empress Dowager's rewards truly fall upon me, I must tread carefully. If I do not answer well, it will inevitably arouse Xie Yun's suspicion. That would mean all previous efforts are wasted, and a fate worse than death awaits. Xie Yun is a shrewd person. If I were to refuse any reward, it would only come across as hypocritical and insincere. If I were to directly ask the royal family to grant me a divorce from Jiangshu, such an unusual and straightforward request would make Xie Yun suspect that my rescue of the Empress Dowager was driven by ulterior motives. One wrong move, and I could be suspected of being an accomplice to the assassin. Therefore, I must follow the most natural human instinct and ask for a reward. To demonstrate my selflessness and innocence, the reward must be requested on behalf of the Jining Marquis household. You really are a virtuous wife and filial daughter. Xie Yun teased me. Did you know? Jiangshu was stabbed by an assassin and had his manhood severed. Now he's no different from a eunuch. What? I suppressed my laughter and pretended to look utterly shocked, as if the sky had fallen. Have you ever thought about finding a backup option? Xie Yun closed in on me, his cold breath rushing toward me. Do you know that when a person faints, their whole body goes limp and powerless, just like overcooked noodles? He suddenly reached out and touched my tailbone through my clothes. But when I held you in the Imperial Garden, your spine was as stiff as a stick. What? Are you nervous in my arms? The Crown Prince narrowed his eyes and asked inquisitively. You can still be nervous even when you've fainted. Damn it, Xie Yun has discovered that I'm faking it. I took a risky move to block the arrow for the Empress Dowager, and even though I was severely injured, I didn't dare to truly faint, so my body inevitably had a tense reaction. I never expected Xie Yun to notice even such a subtle flaw. He suddenly pressed hard on a certain acupoint behind my waist, and my entire body went limp uncontrollably. Xie Yun caught me smoothly. This is the real reaction when someone faints. I let out a soft groan and melted into his embrace, only to hear the Crown Prince chuckle above my head. My lady is delicate and fragile, but what a pity that Jiangshu, a true eunuch, will never have the fortune to enjoy it. Just as I was feeling embarrassed, someone outside announced the arrival of the Empress Dowager. Xie Yun then released his grip, and I took 2 steps back, cautiously putting distance between myself and this unfathomable Crown Prince. As soon as the Empress Dowager saw me, she took my hand, inquired about my injuries, and asked what reward I wanted. I repeated my request to give the reward to the Marquis's household, to which the Empress Dowager said with concern, "My child, you should think of yourself. Your husband is now no different from a eunuch." Tears welled up in My eyes, Your Majesty, that is all the more reason for me to return and see my husband. The Marquis of Jinning and I have been married since we were young. He has not failed me, and I cannot fail him either." As I said this, Xie Yun's eyebrows twitched beside me. I wanted this suspicious man to know that I had purely saved the Empress Dowager's life, with no ulterior motives after all. Not contending is the greatest contention. 3 days later, once my condition had stabilized, I insisted on returning to the Marquis's residence to check on things. The Crown Prince's residence sent a carriage to take me to the entrance of the Marquis's estate. With the support of the maidservant, I stepped down from the carriage. Even without turning around, I could feel a scorching gaze monitoring my every move. Pretending not to notice, I remained composed and stepped through the main gate of the Marquis's estate. Mother Wang heard that I had returned to the mansion and rushed towards me in a rage, slapping me right at the entrance of the Marquis's residence. "You wretched woman, your husband nearly bled to death these past few days. Where have you been fooling around?" Wang said, slapping me again. I did not dodge. The Crown Prince is watching from the shadows. I want him to see with his own eyes the duplicity of the Marquis's household, and to see how innocent and fragile I am. The weaker and more naive the prey, the more the hunter lets down their guard. At that moment, Ju Dai also rushed forward and accused me, saying, "There were so many assassins at the time. I saw with my own eyes that the lady abandoned the Marquis and ran away. With the recent unrest in the capital due to the search for the assassins, the lady must have been afraid of death and hid herself somewhere." The news from the Eastern Palace was tightly sealed. Before the imperial edict of commendation was issued, no one knew that I had been recuperating in the Eastern Palace these past few days, and even fewer knew I was the Empress Dowager's savior. I offered no explanation, only showing a face full of concern. "How is the Marquis? Let me go see him," Wang shrieked. "I don't need your fake kindness. If you were truly worried about my son, you should have thrown yourself in front of him when the assassin's blade came down." I patiently explained, "Mother-in-law, it's not that I didn't want to protect my husband, but I had to save someone more important." "Who could be more important? My son is your husband. Your heaven, even the Jade Emperor, the Emperor, or the Empress Dowager are not as precious as my son." I deliberately asked, "What if I really had gone to save the Empress Dowager? If I hadn't taken that blow, Her Majesty the Empress Dowager would have lost her life. How dare you boast in front of me? You think you can save the Empress Dowager?" The only son had his lineage severed, leaving the Marquis's household with no heir. Lady Wang had long since lost her composure, and at her own doorstep, she dared to speak recklessly. "What does the Empress Dowager matter? Who is more precious than my son? The Empress Dowager only lost her life, but my son has lost his ability to carry on the family line. He bled so much and suffered for 3 days and 3 nights. 3 days and 3 nights. My son is the only heir of the Marquis household for 3 generations. You selfish, vicious woman, how could you not protect him? Why wasn't it you who got struck by the blade?" She didn't dare confront the assassin, so she shifted all the blame onto me. She appeared to be acting recklessly and madly, but in reality, she had already considered that even if she offended me and cursed me to die, there would be no consequences, because I come from a merchant family, with my maternal home far away in Jiangnan. There is no one in the capital who would stand up for me. Wang Shi screamed at me with heart-wrenching agony. "Shen Wanghe, you are disloyal and unfilial. You have caused our Jinning Marquis household to be left without an heir." "Madam, the Marquis's household will not be left without an heir." Just as Lady Wang was breaking down in a fit of rage, Ju Dai suddenly touched her own belly and stepped forward shyly. "I am already carrying the Marquis's child in my womb." Lady Wang was stunned. "What? It's been over a month now. The doctor says it's most likely a boy." Ju Dai proudly stroked her belly while looking at me provocatively. She probably thought I would be shocked or furious, but I just stared at her coldly. Sure enough, in my previous life, Ju Dai and Jiang Shu had already been secretly involved at this time, so Jiang Shu was so eager to send me to Lingnan to recuperate because he was afraid the truth would come out and put Ju Dai in an awkward position. "Good, very good." Lady Wang quickly supported Ju Dai. "Daya, you've done extremely well. Our Marquis household is counting on this pregnancy of yours. But after all, I'm just a maid. What's so difficult about this? If you can bear children for the Marquis's household, you will be its greatest benefactor. I will immediately have my son grant you a proper status. Ju-Dai caressed her belly and said with tears, "This child is the only bloodline of the Marquis's household. If he is merely the son of a concubine, I fear he will never be able to hold his head high in this lifetime. The position she wants to take is mine, that of the primary wife of the Marquis's household, then elevate Daya to be the principal wife of the Marquis's household." Supported by 2 servants, Jiangxu walked forward with a hunched back, glaring at me. "Shen Wanghe, I am divorcing you. I will make you a discarded wife." I picked up my handkerchief and pretended to shed tears. "My husband, what wrong have I done? Why are you so cruel? You still dare to ask?" Jiangxu was furious, but his voice lacked masculinity, sounding more like a shrill scolding. "At the banquet, it was you who punched me, causing me to fall to the ground and get slashed by that assassin." Slashed, he trembled with humiliation, but I innocently retorted, "My husband, are you too overwhelmed by grief? In such a critical moment, how could I possibly hit you? You still dare to quibble. I was hiding behind you, and you punched me and ran away to save yourself. That assassin's blade wouldn't have hurt me in the first place. So my husband is upset about this." I curled my lips into a cold smile and retorted loudly, "So what you're saying is, I should have been your human shield and let the assassin kill me. What does my life count for then? Back when we got married, you made solemn vows to me, swearing before my father that you would protect me and keep me safe." I lowered my gaze, staring at Jiangxu's empty crotch area, and smirked mockingly. "What's the matter? Have those words been chopped off along with your family jewels? You, Shen Wanghe, how dare you? Your father is dead, and there's no one left in your Jiang family." Jiangxu staggered closer to me. "I am, after all, a hereditary third-rank marquis. If you don't behave, crushing you would be as easy as crushing an ant." "Exactly." Madame Wang stepped forward and said, "First, you failed to protect your husband. Second, you couldn't bear children for our Marquis manor. And you dare to talk back to your mother-in-law, while your husband was severely injured. Instead of staying by his bedside to serve him medicine, you went out to fool around. Each and every one of these offenses is enough for our Marquis manor to divorce you. Not only will we divorce you, but your dowry and the treasury under your name must all remain in our Marquis manor. Consider it compensation for your sins. My maternal family is the wealthiest in Jiangnan, and I am the only legitimate daughter of the Shen family. When I married into the Marquis manor, I brought a dowry that stretched for 10 miles, most of which was used to pay off the Marquis manor's external debts. 2 years ago, my parents went out and encountered pirates at sea, both losing their lives. The Shen family's treasury was then transferred under my name in my previous life. During the first year I went to Lingnan to recuperate. I still had the energy to hold onto the treasury keys. By the second year, I was weak and frail, drowsy and dazed, completely unable to manage the household affairs. Jiangxu coaxed and deceived me into handing over the vault key. With this mountain of wealth, the Marquis's household lived extravagantly. For 2 years, even using money from the vault for the full moon celebration, including the gold necklace around the 3-year-old child's neck. In this lifetime, they are still eyeing the vault, and in their desperation, they don't even bother pretending anymore. Jiangxu grabbed my collar and threatened sharply, "Shen Wanghe, hand over the vault key. I'll give you a dignified way out, otherwise, don't blame me for not cherishing our years of affection." I sneered, bent down to look at Jiangxu. My smiling eyes curved as I whispered provocatively, "What affection is there to cherish between me and a real eunuch like you?" Jiangxu's face suddenly changed. "You venomous woman, you did it on purpose." He roared and raised his fist. I let him strike, but before his fist could land, I let out a sharp cry, then fell to the ground, wailing loudly, "Husband, don't hit me, don't hit me, Shen Wanghe, how dare you still put on an act?" Jiangxu was so enraged he seemed ready to tear me apart. But before he could get anywhere near me, a sharp kick came flying in. Jiangxu let out a miserable cry, was sent flying half a mile through the air, and vomited a mouthful of blood when he landed. Wang and Ju-Dai were about to pounce on me, but they were frozen in place by fear. The one who kicked Jiang Shu to the ground was none other than the crown prince. How dare you show disrespect to the Rongan County princess? The 3 members of the Jiang family were frozen in place with fear. Xieyun helped me up from the ground, and I deliberately staggered, causing the wound on my shoulder to bleed again. Did Jiang Shu really dare to hit you? Xieyun knew I was fainting on purpose and even doubted my deliberate sleep-talking. In fact, over the years, Jiang Shu and Lady Wang had only given me soft blows at most. After all, the Marquis's household still relied on my treasury to survive, so he didn't dare to actually lay a hand on me today. He was pushed to the edge, and I deliberately provoked him, which led to the scene just now. And all of this was only for the Crown Prince to see. Please forgive the embarrassment, Your Highness, I said weakly. Such family disgrace should have been kept behind closed doors. The Crown Prince supported my arm with his left hand and held my back with his right palm, clearly intending to stand up for me. I knew then that this act had fooled the Crown Prince. Lady Wang was the first to regain her composure. She stepped forward respectfully and said, "Greetings, Your Highness, please. Forgive my poor eyesight, but where is the county princess?" The Crown Prince replied, "Shen Wanghe has rendered great service by saving the emperor. The Empress Dowager has personally decreed that she be granted the title of county princess." Lady Wang refused to believe it. "Your Highness must be mistaken. Shen Wanghe has been hiding outside these past few days out of fear for her life. How could she possibly be granted the title of county princess? Yes, Shen, my wife is as timid as a mouse and fears death like a plague. How could she possibly have the courage to save the Empress Dowager?" As soon as Jiang Shu finished speaking, someone from the palace arrived. "Imperial decree has arrived. By the mandate of heaven, the emperor decrees. Shen Wanghe has rendered meritorious service in rescuing the Empress Dowager and is hereby granted the title of second-rank Princess of Rongan, with a fief of 1,000 households." As soon as the imperial decree was announced, both Jiang Shu and Lady Wang were stunned in place. Coming from official families, they naturally understood how prestigious the title of second-rank princess was. It actually surpassed that of a third-rank marquis. Ju Dai had no sense of proportion. All she knew was that with this decree, her position as the mistress of the marquis household would be gone. She urgently retorted, "It's a mistake. It must be a mistake." That day, I clearly saw Shen Wanghe push the marquis aside and run away by herself. I did not run away, I calmly explained. I saw a hidden arrow aimed at the Empress Dowager and rushed over to save her. I glanced indifferently at the members of the Jiang family. The Empress Dowager is the mother of the nation, far more precious than the marquis's life, isn't she? Yes, yes, yes. No one dared to refute. And Lady Wang nodded even more vigorously, like pounding garlic. "Just now, I clearly heard you shouting that the lives of the Emperor and Empress Dowager are not as precious as Jiang Shu's. You also said that the Empress Dowager merely died, but Jiang Shu was cut off from having descendants." Lady Wang panicked and begged for mercy. "Your Highness, spare me. I have suffered repeated blows and spoke recklessly. I beg the imperial family not to blame me. Please forgive my offense." The Crown Prince said coldly, "Cursing the Empress Dowager is a crime punishable by death." Lady Wang was so frightened that her legs trembled, and she shakily crawled on her knees to my feet. "Wanghe, my good daughter-in-law, please plead for your mother-in-law. Since you married into our family, your mother-in-law has treated you well." "Well, has she? In my previous life, when I returned to the mansion severely injured, Wangsha, fearing that I could no longer bear children, secretly arranged for Jiang Shu to take a concubine while I was recuperating in Lingnan. Wangsha took advantage of my absence in the capital to seize many of the farmlands under my name for herself. After I returned to the capital, she kept calling me a lunatic. Besides these overt hostilities, ever since I entered the mansion, she has dealt me many hidden blows. At that time, I thought Jiang Shu and I were in love, and for the sake of family harmony, I could tolerate it to some extent. Now that the wolf has bared its fangs, does she still expect me to show mercy? Your Highness, my mother-in-law is indeed straightforward and speaks her mind, but her offense does not warrant death." I looked at my mother-in-law and said with a smile, "Mother-in-law, how could I bear to see you die?" Madame Wang's face was covered in disheveled tears. Daughter-in-law, daughter-in-law, I knew you would remember my kindness, but cursing the Empress Dowager and showing contempt for the imperial family's dignity is a grave crime that cannot go unpunished, so, here is what we will do. I pinched Lady Wang's chin with my slender fingers. Cutting off my mother-in-law's meddlesome tongue will serve as a minor punishment and warning, and more importantly, prevent her from bringing trouble upon herself with her words in the future. I looked at the terrified Lady Wang with a beaming smile. Mother-in-law, haven't I treated you quite well? Aren't you going to kneel and kowtow to thank me for my mercy? When Lady Wang was held down in the backyard of the Marquis's residence to have her tongue cut out, Zhu Di fainted from fright. Jiang Shu, with tears streaming down his face and blood flowing from his lower body, lay on the ground crying out for his mother. After her tongue was cut out, Lady Wang covered her bloody mouth and wailed on the ground, no longer able to shout such foul words as "My son is your heaven" or "You are just a madman." This is the first time I have used the power granted by the Empress Dowager. When you risk your life to save a man in power, the reward you receive may be being cast aside like a worn-out shoe or even having your family's assets seized. At best, you might be taken as a wife or concubine by the man, as they consider this a reward and a way to repay the favor. But when you risk your life to save a woman in power, the reward she gives you is always generous and abundant. I looked at Xieyun. Your Highness, were you not frightened? Of course he wasn't. Haven't his subordinates done this kind of thing plenty of times? In front of me, you don't carry this murderous attitude. Is that so? I covered the wound on my shoulder. Your Highness may think I am cruel, but in truth, I am saving everyone in the Jiang family. Offending the Empress Dowager is a capital offense. Although the punishment of cutting out the tongue is brutal, it can save my mother-in-law's life. I have done all of this with great care and effort, all for the sake of my husband and for the good of the Marquis's household. As I spoke, my gaze drifted toward the servants in the garden. The maid and the houseguard exchanged a glance, then knelt before me in unison. We obey only our mistress. We obey only the Lady of Rongan County. I accepted their allegiance with composure all these years. The Marquis estate has been sustained entirely by my dowry to maintain the family's ancestral dignity. I should have been the one in charge. I stepped forward and helped the maid, Yinzhu, to her feet. Yinzhu was my dowry maid in my previous life. She accompanied me to Lingnan, but we encountered bandits on the way. Yinzhu and my other trusted attendants all perished. This is why during the 3 years I was recuperating, there was no one around I could rely on. Allowing Jiang Shu to take advantage of the situation after the incident, those mountain bandits vanished without a trace, and the authorities had no way to pursue them. It wasn't until 3 years later when I returned to the Marquis's estate that I saw one of the bandits, with a scar on his face. Now acting as the new steward of the estate, putting on a righteous appearance, Yinzhu looked at my bleeding wound, tears in her eyes as she blamed herself. "Miss, it was my fault for not protecting you properly. I deserved to die." The palace banquet was too chaotic, and Yinzhu was separated from me in the crowd. These past few days, she had been worried and filled with self-blame, her eyes red from lack of sleep. "Silly Yinzhu, you foolish girl." I stroked Yinzhu's cheek. She was just a young girl with a frail body. Yet in our previous life, she had stood in front of me and was stabbed through the throat by a mountain bandit. How much it must have hurt. Take care of the wound, and don't forget to enter the palace to express your gratitude. Xieyun reminded me while instructing 2 imperial physicians to step forward and assist. Although this arrow wound did not hit any vital areas, it was deep enough to expose the bone and should not be taken lightly. Yinzhu helped me to the warm chamber. The maids from the Eastern Palace were also attentive and considerate, but none were as close to me as Yinzhu, who has been by my side since childhood. After changing the dressing and straightening my attire, I entered the Yongning Palace to express my gratitude to the Empress Dowager for her great kindness. To my surprise, the Empress Dowager stood up and personally came to assist me. "Good child, until your wound has healed, there is no need to stand on ceremony when you see me." In just one afternoon, the affairs of the Marquis of Jinning's household had already reached the palace. The Empress Dowager, concerned about my injuries and sympathetic to my plight, did not criticize me for being cruel. Instead, she praised me, saying I had done well. When I granted you the title of county princess and bestowed power upon you, it was so that you would have the ability to protect yourself. Your decision today was excellent, reminiscent of my own style in the past. If you wish to divorce your husband, I can also make the decision for you. The Marquis of Jinning is as good as finished and should not hinder your future. I hesitated and said, Your Majesty, I have been married into the Marquis household for 3 years. The ties have already become deeply rooted and entangled. The Crown Prince interjected. What, are you still reluctant to part with Jiang Shu? The Empress Dowager shot Xie Yun a glare. This is a matter between us women. You men should stay out of it. Xie Yun resentfully fell silent. The Empress Dowager looked at me again, her eyes full of smiles. I understand that divorcing him now might invite criticism. Besides, the debts of the inner household must be settled within the inner household. She patted the back of my hand. Lord Jinning is a third-rank official, but I will grant you the title of second-rank Rongan County Lady, which will put you above him. Let me say it again, I grant you the authority, so use it boldly. Empress Dowager Zhong secured her position at the age of 20 and helped her son seize the throne at 30. She then held court from behind a screen for 3 years, only returning full governance to the current emperor once the court was stabilized. She possesses a keen mind, understands my situation, and grasps what I leave unspoken. If I divorce my husband now, I will inevitably be accused of being unkind, forgetting favors and turning ungrateful once I've gained wealth. Besides, if I really divorce Jiang Shu, what excuse would I have to torment his entire family to death? Her Majesty the Empress Dowager is absolutely right. Debts within the inner chambers should be repaid with the methods of the inner chambers. I was kept by the Empress Dowager for dinner before leaving. Before exiting the palace, I mustered the courage to ask her for one of the palace maids by her side. The palace maid was named Daoshin, a personal attendant to the Empress Dowager, who was fresh and lovely with bright, sparkling eyes. I did not ask the Empress Dowager for any other gold or silver rewards, only this maid. I claimed that having another capable maid by my side would help manage the affairs of my residence. After my injury, my energy would inevitably not be as before, and the Empress Dowager, feeling sympathetic, naturally agreed. Daoshin followed me out of the palace. At the palace gate, I returned her deed of servitude to her. Palace maids are only allowed to leave the palace at the age of 25. But now you can regain your freedom 4 years early. Daoshin was both surprised and puzzled. Does the county princess not want this servant anymore? What is this? Beneath the deed of servitude was a bank draft from a money house. Go to the Yangju money house. It's my Shen family's bank. This draft can be exchanged for 100 taels of gold. I've heard your embroidery is excellent. Are you from Yangju? Use this money to open a cloth shop in Jiangnan. You won't have to be a servant anymore. Daoshin was both overjoyed and deeply puzzled. This servant, I have had no interaction with you, county princess. Why are you treating me so kindly? I smiled faintly. I like your eyes. I hope the sparkle in them never fades. The carriage is ready for you. The journey to Jiangnan is long, so to be safe, I've arranged for an escort from the security bureau to accompany you. You can rest assured. Regaining her freedom and receiving a sum of gold, Daoshin naturally expressed endless gratitude, even wanting to kneel and thank me. I held her up to prevent her from kneeling and watched as she boarded the carriage. Yinju breathed a huge sigh of relief. I almost thought you had shifted your affections and didn't like Zhua anymore. I gently tapped Yinju's nose bridge. Silly Zhua, let me ask you, if you had been by my side when the assassination attempt happened, Yinju said resolutely, I would definitely have taken that stab for you. Miss, Daoshin is just like you. In the previous life, someone also took a stab for the Empress Dowager, and that person was Daoshin. Later, Daoshin was also granted the title of county princess and even married the crown prince. To become the crown princess later on, no matter what, after being reborn, I seized the opportunities that should have been Daoshin's in this life. This is what Daoshin deserved, and it is also what I owed her and am repaying her. The county princess has her own residence, but I still return to the Marquis's mansion. Jiang Shu recognized the situation and greeted me with a smile as I entered the mansion. As if the person who had been clamoring to divorce his wife and crush me a few days ago was someone else. Darling, I was wrong in the past. From now on, let's live well together. My mother has been acting inappropriately for her age, so I've sent her to the backyard, out of sight, out of mind. Let's not let this affect our marital relationship. Who are you calling your wife? I asked him calmly. Weren't you clamoring to make Ju-Dai your official wife? At that moment, Ju-Dai walked right in front of me. She never used to dress ostentatiously, but the fabrics were always the finest silks and satins, now dressed in the attire of a servant, all in coarse cloth. Even the decorative hairpins and earrings were gone. Supporting her already prominent belly, she stepped forward and bowed to me. Greetings, County Princess. I beg your highness not to hold my petty faults against me. How unwillingly these words were spoken. It must have felt like grinding teeth in frustration. Jiang Shu eagerly expressed his loyalty. It was she who seduced me and led me to make a mistake. Not only will I not marry her, but she shouldn't even dream of being a concubine. Ju-Dai is just a maid, once a servant, forever a servant of my Marquis estate. Ju-Dai lowered her head, her shoulders trembling slightly, likely hurt by Jiang Shu's harsh words. I watched Jiang Shu's flattering expression and exposed his lie. How heartless you are, Marquis. When you were secretly entangled with your Dia behind my back, weren't you calling her cousin so affectionately? Jiang Shu's expression stiffened, then he forced a smile and lowered his head. To explain humbly, when did you start investigating so thoroughly, my dear? Although Ju-Dai is my cousin, the Ju family committed a grave crime, and she was reduced to a lowly status. I brought her back to serve as a servant. Even though I've been intimate with her, in my heart, there has only ever been you. Ju-Dai could bear it no longer and raised her head. Marquis, I am carrying your only child. How could you treat me with such contempt? Jiang Shu suppressed his reluctance, stepped forward, and slapped Ju-Dai. Silence. How dare you try to drag me into this? I was merely drunk and made a mistake. Don't you dare dream of rising in status because of the child. The only mistress of this Marquis's household is the Lady of Rongan County. Ju-Dai was slapped to the ground, crying even more hysterically, and even began pounding her own stomach. I don't want this child either. I'll make sure you have no descendants. No descendants. Yinju, following my signal, stepped forward and grabbed Ju-Dai's hands. Why must you go to such extremes? Sister, I smiled as I helped her up. Since you are with child, you naturally may enter the Marquis's household. I, as the mistress, give my approval. What? Ju-Dai was taken by surprise, her tears pausing at the corners of her eyes. I then asked the steward, how is my mother-in-law's injury? Replying to the county princess, the old lady is unable to speak. It seems that when her tongue was cut, a vital part was injured. Now she cannot take care of herself, and the doctor says it is not advisable for her to see anyone. With a face full of compassion, I said, mother-in-law is truly pitiful, to suffer such a fate at her age. Jiang Shu couldn't help but say, it was clearly you who wanted to cut out her tongue. So what if it was? If her tongue wasn't cut out, it would be a death sentence. Compared to losing her life, just losing a tongue is already considered light. I smiled at Jiang Shu and said, don't you agree, my dear husband? Jiang Shu seemed to be thoroughly unnerved by my gaze and didn't dare to argue, afraid that he might lose something else. Ju-Dai, however, was immersed in the joy of soon marrying into the Marquis's household. I took her hand. Since you're entering the household as a concubine, you're considered half a daughter-in-law. With your mother-in-law seriously injured and bedridden, Sister Dai, you should go and fulfill your filial duties by her sickbed. What? Why me? Ju-Dai was greatly startled, realizing she had spoken out of turn, and quickly tried to make amends. What I mean is, I am with child and can barely take care of myself. How could I possibly take good care of my mother-in-law? You won't even fulfill this small act of filial duty, and yet you still want to become a concubine of the Marquis's household. Ju-Dai was put in a difficult position by me, trapped between a rock and a hard place in the end. For the sake of the Marquis Mansion's wealth and honor, she gritted her teeth and nodded in agreement. I will personally take care of it. 3 days later, Ju-Dai married into the Marquis Mansion through the side door, becoming Jiang Shu's concubine when she entered the mansion. There was no wedding banquet, let alone any guests. The only ones watching her enter were the female servants and household guards of the Marquis mansion. Zhu Dai stood tall with her pregnant belly, as if warning everyone she would gain status through her child. She indeed had the capital to be proud, for the child in her womb was the only bloodline of the Jining Marquis household. As long as the child was born safely, regardless of gender, concubine Zhu's status would rise accordingly. On their wedding night, Jiang Shu coaxed her, asking her to endure with patience. Zhu Dai was uncharacteristically sensible. Shen Wanghe may be impressive now, but no matter how capable she is, as long as she is your wife, she will never have children of her own in this lifetime. I may have lost to her this time, but in 10 or 20 years, she will have to live under the shadow of my son. By then, I will still become the mistress of the Marquis household. The commotion in the bridal chamber was relayed to me by the maids, and I merely smiled without a word. The next day, Zhu Di went to the backyard to serve tea to Lady Wang. As soon as she pushed the door open, a foul stench assaulted her nostrils. Lady Wang was lying in a pile of excrement, her mouth open as she wailed and babbled incoherently. Zhu Di, protecting her belly, was about to retreat in disgust when someone pushed her from behind. Yinzhu gave Zhu Di a push, shoving her into the room. Aunt Zhu, now that you're someone's daughter-in-law, you should fulfill your filial duties and properly care for your ailing mother-in-law. The door was shut from the outside. Zhu Di pounded on the door and windows. I'm pregnant. How dare you treat me like this? Open the door. Don't lock me in here with this old woman. Open up. The only response came from Jiang Shu. Dia, take good care of my mother. It's your duty. Just bear with it a little longer. Zhu Di truly endured it. No one else was helping. Only Zhu Di was fulfilling her filial duties alone. Every day, she brewed medicine for Madame Wang, wiped her body, and even handled her waist, all while complaining under her breath, "These hands of mine are far too precious to be touching such filth. Why don't you go torment Shen Wanghe instead of tormenting me? It stinks. Why don't you just die and stop dragging me down? What are you glaring at me for?" Zhu Di patted Madame Wang's face. "Old madam, back when I first entered the mansion, you were always picking on me. If I hadn't climbed into the Marquis's bed myself, you would have sold me off to a brothel by now. Now that you've fallen into my hands, even if I hit you or curse at you, what can you possibly do to me? What can you do to me?" She provoked him word by word, even raising her hand to slap Wang's face. Wang was so angry that his eyes and mouth twisted, and he suddenly lunged forward. Zhu Di reacted quickly, shielding her belly with one hand while forcefully pushing him away with the other. A dull thud came from the backyard. "County Princess, Madame Zhu is outside requesting an audience." When I pushed open the study door, Zhu Di looked slightly pale and bowed to me with an honest and respectful salute. "County Princess, the old madam's illness has been well taken care of by me. This morning, she gestured to me, saying she wants to see you and apologize to you. Please move to the backyard, County Mistress, to see your mother-in-law." Seeing that I did not move, Zhu Di said, "It was the County Mistress who said she would fulfill her filial duties to her mother-in-law. Shouldn't the County Mistress set an example?" Yinzhu grabbed my hand, preventing me from going to the backyard. "It is time for me to visit my mother-in-law as well." I had all the maids wait in the study and walked alone with Zhu Di toward the backyard. There were no other servants on duty in the backyard. As we reached the bridge, Jiang Shu's footsteps suddenly sounded from behind. At that moment, Zhu Di suddenly grabbed my hand, her face full of terror, and shouted, "County Princess, why did you kill your mother-in-law?" A gust of wind suddenly blew open the loosely closed door. They saw Lady Wang sitting stiffly on the ground, a pool of blood behind her, her eyes wide open and her mouth agape. She had been dead for some time. "I saw with my own eyes that you accidentally pushed your mother-in-law. Do you think being a county princess gives you the right to treat human life as worthless?" Zhu Di clung tightly to my hand, relentlessly accusing me of wrongdoing. She even deliberately retreated toward the edge of the bridge, beneath which lay a shallow lotus pond. While crying out her innocence, she glared at me with venomous eyes, clearly conveying the message, "Today, you will be ruined by me." Just then, Jiang Shu's footsteps grew closer and closer. Zhu Di aimed for the spot and prepared to fake a fall. This way, the chain of lies would fall into place. She caught me accidentally causing my mother-in-law's death, then nearly got silenced by me on the bridge. Jiang Shu, who arrived just in time, would witness it all. One final murder charge would be enough to take me to the highest court and strip me of my title as the county princess. Though Zhu Di seemed to be risking everything, she was extremely careful to protect her belly. This child was her only bargaining chip, so naturally, she took every precaution. It was already past the first trimester, and falling into such a shallow lotus pond wouldn't cause any harm, especially since Jiang Shu would rescue her immediately. County princess, I won't say anything. Please don't harm my child, he is the Marquis's only bloodline. While she pleaded through tears, she saw Jiang Shu had already arrived. She curled her lips, seized the moment, and was about to fake a fall when suddenly her neck tightened. Following her entanglement, I grabbed her by the neck and lifted Zhu Di's entire body off the ground. I know martial arts, and my hand strength is not small. Zhu Di's face instantly turned red from suffocation. She looked at me in shock, and I said coldly, trying to frame me for murder. Why bother framing you? I'll take your life openly and above board. With a sudden, forceful throw from my hand, Zhu Di was flung into the lotus pond, splashing a huge wave of water amid Jiang Shu's terrified screams. Zhu Di twisted her body as she surfaced, a pool of blood beginning to spread beneath her. Clutching her stomach, Zhu Di cried out in despair, my child, my child." I watched coldly as the blood seeped into the lotus pond. The child in Zhu Di's womb was indeed a boy. In my previous life, he grew up quite sturdy, but unfortunately, he was ill-mannered, wearing the gold necklace from my dowry. He called me a beggar woman in front of everyone and threatened to starve me to death. For a child I despise, in this life, I won't even give him the chance to be born. Jiang Shu, who witnessed everything, collapsed to the ground, wailing even louder than Zhu Di. With the Marquis of Jining having lost his mother and now his heir, it was only fitting to cry his heart out. Jiang Shu charged at me, intent on killing me, but I kicked him squarely in the crotch. He fell face down and curled up on the ground in agony. Since Zhu Di tried to frame me for murder in front of you, I'll show you what a real killing looks like. Your only bloodline is gone. I pinched Jiang Shu's chin, smiling provocatively. Marquis, I've ended your lineage. What can you possibly do to me? I released his face and strode away. Behind me came Jiang Shu's beast-like roar. Shen Wanghe, I'll make sure you die a miserable death. 3 days later, Jiang Shu sounded the grievance drum. Zhu Di held a petition, kneeling in front of the prefectural office and shouting, Lady Rongan abused her power to bully others, murdered her mother-in-law, and even killed the innocent child in my womb. She has brought chaos to the household of the Marquis of Jining, cutting off their descendants. The chief minister of the Court of Judicial Review was alarmed and was about to hold court, but Jiang Shu threw down the drumstick. I want to appeal directly to the Emperor. Lady Rongan's merit in saving the Emperor is fake. She wants to rebel. I will report this to the Empress Dowager and the Emperor. The matter was of great consequence, and Jiang Shu and Zhu Di were indeed granted permission to enter the palace to present their case. Inside the Jingde Hall, a tall screen stood before Jiang Shu and Zhu Di. From behind the screen came the voice of the Empress Dowager. Marquis of Jining, are you saying the county princess's merit in saving the emperor is fabricated? What evidence do you have? Your Majesty, it is true that Shen Wanghe took a knife for the Empress Dowager that day, and that strike was blocked so precisely. Having been married to her for many years, I know she has some martial arts skills, but she is by no means a master. If Shen Wanghe hadn't known in advance that the assassin's target was the Empress Dowager, how could she have reacted so quickly? The only explanation is that Shen Wanghe was already aware of the assassination attempt at the palace banquet. The assassination was an open scheme, and she used the act of blocking the knife to gain the Empress Dowager's trust. Reaping both fame and fortune, while waiting for an opportunity to harm the Empress Dowager or even the Emperor, this is the true conspiracy of the mastermind behind it all. The Empress Dowager behind the screen asked, how can you be sure you're not just talking nonsense? Jiang Shu took a letter from Zhu Di. I found letters in Shen Wanghe's bedroom that reveal her conspiracy to carry out an assassination, and the mastermind behind this assassination is. Jiang Shu paused for a moment, closed his eyes, and revealed, it was Prince Ning, Xie Cheng. The eunuch stepped forward to take the letter and delivered it to the Empress Dowager. The letter indeed bore Prince Ning's handwriting. On the surface, it appeared to be an ordinary letter, but the hidden acrostic, when read together, formed the message. On the 6th day at the Imperial Garden, you must act according to the situation. This acrostic clearly refers to the assassination attempt on the Empress Dowager during the palace banquet. Not only did Shen Wanghe conspire with Prince Ning to kill the Empress Dowager, but they also exchanged letters. There must be a secret affair between them. That's right, Zhu Dai also testified. I saw Shen Wanghe and Prince Ning meeting in private with my own eyes, and they were behaving intimately. Not only are they having an affair, but they also dare to plot a rebellion. Such a wicked woman must be killed to eliminate any future trouble. Jiang Shu wanted to strike me down with a single blow, when suddenly a familiar voice came from behind the screen. Your Majesty, Your Highness the Empress Dowager, as I said, the evidence of Prince Ning's rebellion has now come to our doorstep. The screen was drawn aside, and Jiang Shu saw that seated in the main positions behind it were the Emperor and the Empress Dowager. Standing beside the Emperor was Crown Prince Xie Yun, and next to the Empress Dowager stood the woman he had called a villain, Shen Wanghe. Shen Wanghe was holding an envelope in her hand. When you found this letter, my husband, why weren't you curious about where its envelope was? On the envelope, in the handwriting of Prince Ning, were written the 5 large characters, to be opened by Marquis of Jinning. This letter was clearly written to you by Prince Ning. Why are you framing me for it? Jiang Shu's face suddenly turned deathly pale. How did the envelope end up with you? I smiled. The entire Marquis residence is filled with my trusted aides. What's so difficult about getting an envelope? Jiang Shu had known about the assassination attempt at the palace banquet all along. The Marquis of Jinning's household couldn't gain the favor of the Crown Prince, so they had no choice but to align themselves with the Prince of Ning's residence. Hoping to have some support in the imperial court, Prince Ning appeared to be fond of poetry and literature, so Jiang Shu catered to his interests, and the two often exchanged letters filled with elegant prose. In reality, every word and sentence in those letters held hidden meanings. In the previous life, the assassin deliberately targeted Jiang Shu to make the act seem genuine. After the assassination attempt failed, Jiang Shu could still claim credit for saving the monarch, allowing the House of Jinning to rise, and the Prince Ning's estate would benefit as well. I rushed in front of Jiang Shu, and the assassin, seeing it was me, intentionally shifted his sword's aim and stabbed me in the chest, because Prince Ning knew that Jiang Shu was fond of his childhood sweetheart, Zhu Dai, and he was happy to play the role of a matchmaker, taking advantage of the chaos to kill Jiang Shu's lawful wife in this life. The assassin's blade aimed at Jiang Shu was also a feint, but after I elbowed Jiang Shu, I deliberately tripped the assassin. The assassin lost his balance and only had time to adjust the direction of his sword, which is why he didn't hit Jiang Shu's vital spot in the chest but accidentally severed his family jewels between his legs. A noble marquis being castrated in public caused Jiang Shu to completely lose his sanity. He suspected that Prince Ning had deliberately intended to harm him. The assassin was executed on the spot by the imperial guards, and Prince Ning had no way to defend himself. He didn't even bother to explain. A crippled Marquis of Jinning had long lost any value to him. I knew that Jiang Shu had been harboring a deep-seated resentment toward Prince Ning. How to utilize this anger was a difficult problem. Fortunately, there was the foolish Zhu Dai. I deliberately allowed her to enter the mansion to serve Lady Wang. Zhu Dai, who was once a young lady of noble birth, still considered herself superior even after being reduced to a servant. I was certain that within 3 days, Zhu Dai would clash with the incapacitated Lady Wang. That day, when Zhu Dai unusually came to request an audience with me, I guessed that something major must have happened. In the backyard, I deliberately fell into her trap and followed her into the backyard. She had planned everything. Jiang Shu, who would arrive soon, would see me causing the death of my mother-in-law and attempting to harm the child in Zhu Dai's womb. Zhu Di's little cleverness was all used up on domestic tricks. She wanted to use this to provoke Jiang Shu, hoping he would rebel against me through his hands, but she didn't know that what I wanted was precisely Jiang Shu's anger in front of Jiang Shu. I tacitly admitted that I had accidentally caused Lady Wang's death, and then, right before his eyes, I threw his beloved childhood sweetheart into the lotus pond, and even went as far as to cut off Jiang Shu's only bloodline. Jiang Shu was convinced that I had killed his mother and made him heirless, and he indeed went completely mad. He found the letters exchanged between the Prince of Ning and himself, sounded the grievance drum, aiming to kill two birds with one stone by betraying the Prince of Ning and ensuring that I would die a miserable death. But he never expected that before he went to the palace to lodge a complaint, I had already told the Crown Prince, interrogating those assassins and death warriors is useless. I have a way to bring the mastermind behind the palace banquet to light. I told the Empress Dowager the truth. This matter involved Prince Ning, a member of the imperial family, and was no joking matter, so I said, the evidence to accuse Prince Ning will be presented by Jiang Shu himself. Thus, I was able to stand behind the screen as an informer and participate in this imperial interrogation. Jiang Shu risked his life to bring out that letter, intending to make Prince Ning perish together with me. Little did he know, both he and Prince Ning had become fish on the chopping block. The one wielding the knife appeared to be the one in power under the imperial authority, but in truth, this knife has always been in my hands. Jiang Shu walked right into the trap. The Prince of Ning was also ordered to be arrested by the Emperor. Upon learning that their plot had been exposed, the Prince of Ning's residents put up a desperate resistance and directly rebelled. The Crown Prince's residents quickly suppressed the troops of the Prince of Ning's residents. Xie Yun acted with such decisiveness and resolve, as if he had long anticipated that the Prince of Ning would be driven to desperate measures. I heard that Prince Ning is in the imperial prison, cursing Empress Dowager Zhong every day, saying that she forced his birth mother to commit suicide, and that he was only avenging his mother. What did he do wrong? The Empress Dowager personally went to the prison and told Prince Ning. Back then, the emperor contracted the plague and was recuperating in the temporary palace. It was through an illicit affair between Consort De and my youngest son that you, an illegitimate child, were conceived. Consort De failed to uphold her chastity, so I granted her a dignified death. As for my youngest son, who committed adultery with a consort, I likewise granted him poisoned wine. Both the adulterous man and the unchaste woman have died. Out of consideration for you being of my bloodline, I have always kept this secret and ensured your dignity and safety. I never expected that you would come to hate me. Upon learning the truth, Prince Ning was greatly shocked and cried out in a trembling voice, "Grandmother, your son knows he was wrong. You have developed murderous intentions toward me, and I cannot allow you to remain in this world. You are not truly remorseful, you are merely afraid of death." The Empress Dowager bestowed a cup of poisoned wine upon Prince Ning and stood outside the prison cell, calmly watching as her beloved grandson was forced to drink the poisoned wine, just as 20 years ago, she had calmly, with her own hands, offered the poisoned wine to her most beloved youngest son, the Prince of Linen. The 17-year-old Prince of Linen suffered from the poison in the Empress Dowager's embrace, clutching her collar and demanding, "Mother, why? I was just momentarily willful, momentarily curious about the Empress. Since you have already killed her, why must you take my life as well?" The Empress Dowager held Prince Linen tightly, her eyes brimming with tears. Yet her tone was icy cold. "Those who commit adultery shall be put to death. Both men and women are equally guilty." Jiang Shu conspired with Prince Ning to rebel and was thrown into the imperial prison. Awaiting execution after the autumn, Zhu Di, as an accomplice, was sentenced to exile 3,000 miles away. Before subjecting the two to torture, I had the Court of Judicial Review lock them up together. Jiang Shu, already mentally twisted and facing death, directed all his resentment toward Zhu Di. "You seduced me, otherwise, I would still be on good terms with Shen Wanghe. I could have benefited from her being granted the title of county princess. But you wretched woman, ruined everything." Zhu Di, with her neck being choked, struggled frantically like a fish out of water. Taking advantage of the dim light in the cellar's cover, she suddenly pulled out a hairpin hidden in her hair and stabbed it through Jiang Shu's temple. Jiang Shu's eyes widened, bloodshot veins quickly appearing around his eyeballs as he released his grip. Ju Dai slid down from the wall and, without pausing to catch her breath, picked up her hairpin and stabbed it through Jiang Shu's chest. It was you who ruined my life. When the Ju family was convicted back then, your Jining Marquisate could have intervened to help, yet you stood by indifferently. You waited until all the male members of my family were beheaded, the female relatives were exiled. I was reduced to slave status before showing up to play the devoted lover. Jiang Shu, you worthless piece of trash who only has a hereditary title. When the Ju family was still prosperous, I might not have even looked at you. You couldn't wait for me to fall into the mud so you could play the savior, making me grateful to you and willingly become your shameful bed companion. Your mother is the same. She has looked down on me ever since I entered this mansion. If she looks down on me, then she might as well die. Ju Dai pinched Jiang Shu's chin. I might as well tell you, I was the one who killed your mother. There was a nail on the wall. When she lunged at me, I deliberately pushed her toward that nail. She ended up hitting the back of her head and died with her eyes wide open. Ha 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 ha. I thought your mother's death would ignite some fighting spirit in you to take down Shen Wanghe, but you're nothing but worthless mud that can't even be helped up a wall, and you ended up like this. Trash, utterly foolish. Jiang Shu's face was twisted in agony and ferocity. He wanted to lash out and fight back, but Ju Dai pinned him to the ground with a single hairpin. Later, when the jailers heard the commotion and rushed over, they found Jiang Shu had already been stabbed into a bloody sieve. Ju Dai, covered in blood, crouched beside Jiang Shu's corpse, holding a long hairpin that was still dripping with blood. Before the two of them were imprisoned, I specifically instructed the jailers to thoroughly search Jiang Shu's person, forbidding him from secretly carrying anything. She also instructed the women conducting the body search to turn a blind eye to Ju Dai, allowing her to retain some dignity. For example, the hairpin she used to tie up her hair could be left untouched. That day, everyone spread the word that Ju Dai had gone mad. Even as she was being exiled, she still carried the stigma of being called a madwoman. Only I know that she is not insane. In her previous life, she was the first to suggest that I went to Lingnan to recuperate because of my madness. This rumor spread for 3 years. By the time I returned to the capital, everyone was convinced that I had been scared out of my wits by the assassins and had gone mad. Even if I truly return to the Marquis's mansion, I can no longer become the mistress in this life. I am only returning like for like. I want Ju Dai to suffer from slander and the pain of exile with full awareness. I am a merciful person, so I spare her life, but I am also someone who holds grudges, so I want her to live a life worse than death. I thwarted Prince Ning's rebellion and achieved a great merit. While waiting for the reward, Xie Yun came to find me. You've already divorced and regained your freedom. Have you ever considered coming to my side? The position of crown princess is still vacant. Are you interested? Just as in Dao Xin's previous life, after the great merit of saving the emperor, she was appointed as the crown princess. The crown prince condescended to show me favor. I do not mind that you were once betrothed to another. Your Highness bringing this up shows that you do mind in your heart, I said calmly. The reason your Highness values me now is only because I have repeatedly achieved great merit in saving the emperor and am a favorite of the Empress Dowager. The emperor respects the Empress Dowager, so he will inevitably value me as well. Your Highness believes that marrying me as the crown princess would bring countless benefits to your grand ambitions, with no drawbacks, so you can overlook the flaw in this woman's chastity. In the first year of marriage to your Highness, we might share unparalleled affection. But what about the 2nd year, the 5th year, the 10th year? Your Highness marries me for gain, and inevitably, you will also discard me for gain. When the value I bring fades with time, how much of your Highness's kindness toward me will remain? Xie Yun's gaze grew even more fervent as he looked at me. The more clear-headed and perceptive you are, the more I must have you, for grand ambitions and great undertakings. It is precisely a rational strategist like you that is needed. If I insist on forcing you to marry me, what will you do then? There is nothing I can do. I leaned close to the crown prince's ear and whispered, "The matter of consort De being put to death by the Empress Dowager, it was your highness who informed the Prince of Ning, wasn't it?" The flirtatious expression on Xie Yun's face instantly turned into cold wariness. "Your highness fears the power of the Ning residents. Knowing that the Prince of Ning is a man of strong emotions, you deliberately exposed this scandal to him, making him resent the Empress Dowager. Then you sit back and reap the rewards, using the Empress Dowager or the Emperor's hand to eliminate the Prince of Ning, killing without shedding blood, leaving not a single trace. You've done it beautifully. I was only guessing, but judging by Xie Yun's expression, I'm 99% sure I hit the mark. I will keep this secret for your highness, as long as you let me go." Empress Dowager Zhong is a formidable figure. Xie Yun would not dare to openly oppose her and even seems eager to win her favor. He was indeed intimidated by my threat. I used to fear Xie Yun's gaze because, at that time, I needed something from him and had to tread carefully, but this time, I looked back at him without flinching, neither humble nor arrogant, and stood my ground, because I had seen through his ambition and malice, and knowing both myself and my enemy gave me the courage to resist. Finally, Xie Yun released his grip. "You may leave. I do not like things that are beyond my control." See, the deeply affectionate crown prince still subconsciously regarded me as nothing more than an object. With the Empress Dowager's favor, the emperor decreed to bestow upon me the title of Princess Rongan. I requested to return to my hometown in Jiangnan to preserve the legacy left by my parents. The Empress Dowager then granted me Yangju as my fiefdom. She has always been generous to me, because she sees her former self in me. I returned to my hometown of Yangju and established a princess manor. I revived the Shun family's porcelain and cloth businesses, shipping them to neighboring countries via waterways. 3 years later, I controlled the majority of the Qi Kingdom's commercial networks. One day, while I was drinking tea in the courtyard, Yinzhu said an old friend had come to visit. The visitor was Daoshin. She looked plump and radiant, accompanied by a handsome man who held a pair of 1-month-old twins in his arms. When Peach Blossom saw me, she knelt down. "I have come to thank the princess for her great kindness." I quickly helped Peach Blossom to her feet, and she looked at me with tear-filled eyes. "A year ago, when I gave birth to these twins, I had a difficult labor and went through a near-death experience, during which I had a dream. That dream was extremely vivid, and a wise person told me that it was my past life. In my past life, I sacrificed myself to take an arrow for the Empress Dowager. She then granted me the title of County Princess of Rongan, and later, the Crown Prince even married me as his Crown Princess, but the glory lasted only a year before the Empress Dowager passed away from her severe injury. The Crown Prince also began to grow tired of me. In the 2nd year, he took a liking to the Prime Minister's daughter. I once saw him in the garden asking the Prime Minister's daughter if she would be willing to come to his side. The day the Crown Prince sought to marry me, he said these exact words. Later, I suddenly fell ill, and the Crown Prince sent me to Lingnan to recuperate. In the 1st year in Lingnan, I wept every day from missing the Crown Prince, and by the 2nd year, I had cried myself blind. In the winter at the end of the 2nd year, I died of illness in the Lingnan villa. The only stranger who shed a tear for me was the lady of the Marquis of Jining, who was also recuperating in Lingnan at the time. I once said that Taoxin's eyes were beautiful, bright, as if holding a cluster of blazing flames, yet in her past life, these very eyes were cried blind for the Crown Prince. That winter, I witnessed with my own eyes the Crown Princess pass away in Lingnan. A physician I was acquainted with secretly told me that the Crown Princess had been taking imperial prescriptions sent from the palace every day, and the medicinal herbs were also bestowed by the palace. It seems the Crown Prince is affectionate and righteous, but the prescription is full of incompatible herbs. Prolonged consumption would inevitably shorten one's life. The death of the Crown Princess deeply shocked me, so in the 3rd year, I decided to drag my ailing body back to the Marquis's residence in the north. I had long harbored suspicions in my heart, but I always thought the Marquis would not be as heartless as the royal family members. I was naive compared to the Crown Prince. Jiang Shu is even more so. The ways in which heartless men in the world treat their first wives are always the same. As if it were an innate, Daoxin saved the Empress Dowager in her previous life and was granted the title of county princess. She married into the Eastern Palace, rising from a palace made to the crown princess. That year, her life was in full bloom, filled with the rewards fate bestowed upon her courage. Later, she suddenly fell ill and was sent by the crown prince to Lingnan to recuperate. By the end of the following year, the crown princess who had soared to great heights passed away in Lingnan. The crown prince wept bitterly, and a month later, he married the daughter of the prime minister into the Eastern Palace, celebrating with the people for 3 days and 3 nights. Daoxin, having narrowly escaped death while giving birth, recalled all the events of her past life. As if guided by some unseen force, she came to express her gratitude to me. Her act of saving the Empress Dowager was driven by courage and loyalty. Once she achieved such a great merit, Xie Yun, in his efforts to please the Empress Dowager, would surely marry Daoxin and make her the crown princess. Everyone would praise it as a perfect match between a hero and a beauty. How could Daoxin, a mere palace maid, evade the crown prince's step-by-step schemes? She was bound to fall deeply into it, just as in her previous life, and fall in love with the crown prince. The crown prince would also love her, but this love had an expiration date. After the Empress Dowager passed away in her previous life, Daoxin's value was completely exhausted. The crown prince exiled her to Lingnan and began searching for the next valuable woman, such as the prime minister's daughter. Daoxin held my hand. If it weren't for you, princess, I would have met the same fate in this lifetime. Daoxin brought forward the man beside her. After leaving the palace, I used the 100 taels of gold you gave me to open the Xindao cloth store. Business has been very good. This is my husband, who is also in business. And these are my 2 children. They're twins, a boy and a girl. The man, holding 2 children, solemnly knelt before me and performed a deep bow. I helped the couple to their feet. And, seeing that the pair of twins were fair and chubby and utterly adorable, fetched 2 purple gold necklaces to give them as a full-month gift. Smiling, I plucked a peach blossom from the courtyard and tucked it behind Daoxin's ear. Spring has arrived, and the peach blossoms are newly in bloom. Daoxin, you are a brave girl. The peace and prosperity of this life are what you truly deserve. I took away Daoxin's merit of saving the emperor in this life. I took away Daoxin's life opportunities. In this life I walked the same treacherous mountain path as she did. She holds flowers in her hand, innocent and unaware, but in my hand, I carry an axe. I will split that mountain apart. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.